History drifts like a river, its waters sometimes rushing, sometimes resting, always carrying us forward. After the medieval centuries of castles, cathedrals, and cloisters, there came a time when the world began to open again, not with sudden noise, but with a soft echo, a quiet awakening. This was the Renaissance, a rebirth not of one thing, but of many. Art reborn with light and depth, knowledge reborn with books and letters, discovery reborn with maps and sails. The word itself means rebirth, and yet it was not a single dawn, but a slow unfolding, like petals opening in morning light. From Florence to Venice, from Rome to Paris, from Lisbon to London, new ideas traveled softly, carried in whispers of scholars, in brushes of painters, in notes of music drifting through halls. It was not thunder, but echo of Greece and Rome rediscovered, echo of human curiosity returning after centuries of shadow. In the Renaissance, walls were painted with frescoes alive with perspective. Canvases glowed with oil, colors rich and layered. Sculptors carved marble until it seemed to breathe, veins alive beneath stone. Architects built domes and arches that soared like sky. Writers penned poems, philosophers debated, scientists measured stars, sailors crossed oceans. The world became larger, yet also closer, for through art and thought people began to see themselves anew. But let us not imagine it as noise and clamor. Though discoveries were great, they came slowly, patiently, a brushstroke laid upon canvas, a page copied in a workshop, a map sketched by candlelight, a note sung in a choir. These were soft echoes, quiet yet lasting, shaping centuries with gentle persistence. Imagine the dawn of Florence in the 15th century, the sun rising upon red-tiled roofs, its light touching the dome of Brunelleschi's cathedral, still fresh in wonder. Narrow streets stir with merchants, with students, with artisans. In a workshop, a painter grinds pigments, the sound soft, the colors bright. A sculptor runs his hand over marble, feeling its chill, imagining the form within. A scholar bends over a manuscript, his quill scratching softly, ink dark upon parchment. Outside bells ring, their echoes drifting across the Arno. It is not thunder, but soft awakening. The Renaissance was not one city, nor one people, but a web of echoes. From Florence's Medici halls to Venice's canals, from Rome's chapels to Flanders towns, from Iberian ports to English courts, it spread like light through glass, refracting, bending, glowing. Each place gave its own voice, each added to the harmony. Together they formed not noise, but a chorus, soft, patient, enduring. And so, as we begin our journey tonight, let us drift into this world not with haste, but with calm. We will walk slowly through halls painted with fresco, sit by presses printing books, stand upon docks watching sails rise. We will listen to echoes soft, steady, eternal. This is the Renaissance, not thunder, but quiet light, not sudden blaze, but steady glow. If the Renaissance was a river, then Florence was its quiet spring, a place where new waters began to flow, in the narrow streets, in the halls of families, in the dim light of workshops. Something subtle and patient began to stir. The city did not roar like a battlefield, nor shine like an empire's capital. Instead, it whispered, it hummed, it breathed slowly, carrying seeds of rebirth that would in time drift far beyond its walls. Florence lay in the heart of Tuscany, its red-tiled roofs rising above the valley of the Arno. The hills around were dotted with olive trees and vineyards, their leaves shimmering in wind. Within its walls, guilds of merchants, bankers, and craftsmen kept life turning quietly but steadily. Silk was woven, gold was hammered, wool was dyed, books were copied, paintings prepared. Each act, simple on its own, became part of a greater rhythm, a patient harmony that would shape centuries. The city was not vast, but it was alive. Its heart was its piazzas, wide and sunlit, where voices mingled in trade, in gossip, in song. The cathedral, with Brunelleschi's dome rising like a great shell, stood as a silent wonder, its curves defying centuries of limits, its stones balanced with genius. Nearby, workshops lined narrow lanes, filled with sawdust, marble dust, the scent of pigments, the clatter of chisels, the grinding of minerals. The hum of conversation drifted softly through air. Nothing loud, nothing grand in the moment yet. Together, it was rebirth. The Medici family, bankers with quiet power, nurtured much of this flowering. They did not shout their influence, but wove it like thread into the city's life. They supported painters, sculptors, scholars, giving them means to work, a commission here, a patronage there. A gift of coins, a quiet word of encouragement. Art flourished not in thunder but in trust, in the steady support of those who believed that beauty and knowledge mattered. Imagine a Florentine painter in his workshop. The morning light filters through a small window, falling upon jars of ground pigments, lapis lazuli, rich and blue, vermilion, red and deep, ochre, golden and warm. He grinds the powders slowly with mortar and pestle, the rhythm steady, the sound soft. Beside him, an apprentice stretches canvas upon frame, careful not to tear the fabric. On the wall hangs a half-finished panel painting saints gazing softly, robes flowing in lines that seem to breathe. The painter works without haste, each brushstroke laid patiently, each detail carried forward with love. This is not spectacle, it is devotion. Elsewhere, in a sculptor's yard, blocks of marble wait. A young artist runs his hand across stone, feeling the veins, imagining the form within. He lifts his chisel, taps lightly, chips falling to the ground. Slowly, a face begins to emerge, cheek, nose, eye. He pauses often, studying, waiting for the stone to speak. Hours pass, the sun moves, shadows lengthen, yet the work continues in silence. Art is not noise, it is patience. Scholars, too, bent over their books. In monasteries and private libraries, they copied old manuscripts, the words of Plato, Aristotle, Cicero. These voices from the ancient world, long quiet, were reborn upon parchment. A scholar dips his quill, ink flowing dark upon vellum, his hand moving carefully. By candlelight, he whispers the words to himself, his lips forming syllables forgotten by many, remembered now again. He pauses, breathes, writes on. The echo of antiquity returns, not as shout, but as soft murmur. Florence was not only art and books, it was life. Children played in piazzas, their laughter rising above the murmur of merchants. Bakers kneaded dough in dawn-light, the smell of bread drifting through streets. Bells rang softly from churches, their tones carrying across the Arno, echoing against hills. Women wove cloth, their looms tapping gently, threads crossing in rhythm. Men bargained at markets, their voices measured, their gestures calm. The city breathed like a living creature, steady, patient, enduring. The Renaissance in Florence was not a sudden spark, but a slow glow. One painting hung in a chapel, another in a hall. One book copied, another read. One dome rising, another. Tower steady. Piece by piece, year by year, the city gathered beauty and thought until it became cradle of a new age. Its echoes drifted outward into Venice, into Rome, into Paris, into the world. And so, as we picture Florence tonight, we do not see armies marching or kings commanding. We see a city at dawn, its rooftops glowing in sunlight, its streets stirring with artisans, its dome rising against sky. We hear bells, chisels, looms, quills, brushes, all soft, all steady. We feel rebirth, not loud, but calm. Florence rests as cradle of the Renaissance, whispering still, its echoes soft, eternal. If Florence was the cradle of the Renaissance, then Venice was its shimmering mirror, a city that floated between land and sea, its stones rising not upon earth but upon water. To walk Venice was to drift, to glide, to hear echoes not of hooves or wheels, but of oars dipping, of water lapping softly against stone. It was a place where merchants and artists, sailors and scholars met, their voices mingling like ripples in the lagoon. Venice was unlike any other city of its time. Built upon islands, tied together by bridges and canals, it seemed both fragile and eternal. Palaces of marble and brick rose from water, their facades reflecting sunlight, their arches opening to sea breezes, gondolas, and trading ships passed one another, sails lowering as oarsmen guided their vessels into narrow channels. The city was a port, a marketplace, a workshop, a stage yet always hushed by the presence of water. Its wealth came from trade. Venetian ships sailed to Constantinople, to Alexandria, to the markets of the Levant. They carried spices, silks, glass, and jewels back to Europe, filling the city with scents of cinnamon, colors of silk, shimmer of gems. Merchants bargained in soft voices beneath arches of the Ravo, coins clinking quietly as hands exchanged, warehouses filled with treasures from distant lands, each crate and barrel carrying not only goods but echoes of faraway places. Venice was crossroads, not loud but steady, its rhythm measured by tides. Art flourished here too, not in silence of cloisters, but in light upon water. Painters of Venice learned to capture color, to paint with depth of tone, to show reflections as real as substance. Canvases glowed with reds and golds, blues of sea and sky, greens of lagoon. Their works did not only decorate churches and palaces, they captured Venice itself, its shimmer, its breath, its quiet grandeur. Glassmakers in Murano worked at their furnaces, flames glowing through night. They blew molten shapes, fragile and glowing, turning them slowly, carefully, until goblets and beads formed. The sound of glass tapping, of breath steady, of furnaces crackling filled the air. Their work traveled far, treasured by kings and courts. Yet in Venice, it was daily life, art born of flame, of patience, of silence. Imagine Venice at dawn. Mist drifts upon canals, soft and pale. Gondolas rest, tied to wooden posts, their prows rocking gently. A baker opens his shop, the smell of bread wafting into streets. A merchant stands upon a bridge, watching ships ease into harbor, their sails folding like wings. A painter sets up near a window, grinding pigments, his eyes lifted to catch light reflecting upon water. Children run across piazzas, their laughter echoing between marble walls. Bells ring from St. Mark's, their sound drifting across lagoon, mingling with gulls. It is not loud, it is serene. Venice was also a place of ideas. Scholars came with manuscripts, maps, instruments. Printers set type, ink pressed onto paper. Books multiplying, knowledge, once rare, began to spread, carried from Venice to other lands. The city became not only a port of goods, but a harbor of learning. A sailor might carry spices to Flanders, but also a printed book to Paris. The waters carried more than trade, they carried thought. And yet, for all its grandeur, Venice was fragile. Its life depended on tides, its foundations on wood beneath water. Storms threatened, enemies plotted, plagues swept through. Still it endured, patient as the sea itself, its rhythm steady, its echoes soft. The Renaissance here was not only painting or sculpture, but the blending of many worlds, east and west, north and south, land and sea. Venice was a bridge, a mirror, a dream upon water. Its canals carried not only gondolas, but centuries of whispers. Its stones glowed not only with sunlight, but with memory. And so, as we picture Venice tonight, we do not see armies marching or kings commanding. We see gondolas gliding slowly, merchants bargaining softly, painters watching light dance, glassmakers shaping flame. We hear bells, oars, gulls, voices low. We feel the water beneath, steady and eternal. Venice rests as jewel of the Renaissance, floating quietly, its echoes shimmering still. If Florence was the cradle of rebirth and Venice its shimmering mirror, then Rome was the deep well of memory, where the past and present echoed together in soft light. The eternal city, once heart of empire, had grown quiet over centuries, its forms broken, its temples weathered, its aqueducts crumbling into silence. Yet in the Renaissance, Rome stirred again, not with the thunder of legions, but with the whisper of brushes upon plaster, of chisels upon marble, of prayers rising beneath domes. Rome had always carried weight, To walk through its streets was to step upon stones worn smooth by 1,000 years, to pass arches that once welcomed emperors, to stand before columns where senators had spoken. By the 15th century, much was ruin, ivy curling over fallen blocks, goats grazing in empty forums, marble stripped and reused in new walls. Yet even in ruin, the stones breathed. They were not dead, but waiting. And into this waiting city came artists, architects, popes, and pilgrims seeking to renew its glory. The Vatican became the heart of this renewal. Popes like Nicholas V, Julius II, and Leo X saw themselves not only as leaders of faith, but as patrons of beauty. They invited painters, sculptors, architects to Rome, commissioning works that would reshape the city. Walls of chapels became canvases, ceilings skies, marble blocks new saints and prophets. Rome became once more a workshop of grandeur, not in the service of empire, but in the service of both God and memory. Imagine the Sistine Chapel in its making. Michelangelo, reluctant yet compelled, climbs scaffolding that stretches high above the floor. Buckets of plaster are hauled up, brushes prepared, pigments ground. The chapel is quiet save for the sound of brushes sweeping, scaffolds creaking, whispers of assistance. Day after day, year after year, he paints prophets, sibyls, creation itself unfolding across ceiling. The figures twist and breathe, their muscles alive, their gazes deep. And yet, for all the greatness of the work, it was born in silence, each stroke laid with patience, each curve shaped in solitude. Elsewhere, Raphael paints soft Madonnas, their faces serene, their colors glowing like dawn. His brush captures tenderness, not noise. His figures hold calm, not drama. In the Stands di Raffaello, he paints philosophy, theology, poetry, law, ancient and Christian wisdom mingling upon walls. Scholars debate beneath painted arches, their gestures calm, their robes flowing. The school of Athens rises in color, Plato pointing upward, Aristotle outward, yet all figures in harmony. In these frescoes, silence is filled with meaning, soft but eternal. St. Peter's Basilica too rose in this time. The old church, worn and fragile, gave way to a new vision. Architects like Bramante, Michelangelo, Bernini shaped stone into vast spaces. Domes lifting toward heaven, colonnades curving, like arms to embrace pilgrims. The basilica did not shout, it welcomed. Its stones glowed in sunlight, its vastness filled with echoes of footsteps, of prayers, of choirs. To enter was to feel small, yet sheltered, wrapped in grandeur that was both gentle and overwhelming. But Rome was not only for popes and palaces. Its streets carried daily life, bakers kneading bread in shadows of ruins, children playing near fountains fed by ancient aqueducts, merchants setting up stalls beneath arches. Pilgrims arrived on weary feet, their prayers whispered as they touched relics. Artists sketched in notebooks, copying fragments of ancient statues, their lines trembling as they traced memory. Farmers led animals into markets, their voices calling softly. The city breathed, not loudly but steadily, its rhythm one of survival and rebirth. The ruins themselves became teachers. Sculptors studied fragments of Roman statues, learning anatomy from broken torsos, grace from fallen faces. Architects measured columns, arches, domes, bringing old forms into new buildings. Writers read Latin texts, philosophers debated Cicero anew. Rome's stones, once silent, spoke again, their whispers guiding hands and minds. Imagine standing in the Forum at twilight. The sun sets, its light glowing upon broken columns. Grass sways where senators once walked. A painter sits with sketchbook, tracing outlines of arches. A pilgrim kneels by a small shrine, candle flickering in wind. Children chase each other across fallen marble. The air is filled with echoes not of legions or emperors, but of quiet lives, of rebirth unfolding slowly. The Renaissance in Rome was not only creation of new wonders, but remembrance of old. It was a conversation between past and present, between empire and faith, between ruin and rebirth. It was not thunder, it was echo, and so, as we picture Rome tonight, we do not hear chariots or legions. We hear brushes sweeping, chisels tapping, bells ringing, footsteps echoing upon ancient stones. We see light glowing upon domes, upon frescoes, upon ruins. We feel the weight of memory, softened by rebirth. Rome rests as eternal city, its stones glowing softly, its echoes carrying still. The Renaissance did not belong to Italy alone. Its echoes traveled northward, across mountains and rivers, carried in books, in trade, in whispered ideas, yet in the towns of Flanders, in the cities of the Low Countries, in the courts of Germany and France, the rebirth of art and thought took a different form. It was quieter, more intimate, less about domes rising or frescoes covering vast walls, and more about light caught upon a single panel, a drop of oil glowing upon wood, a page of a book blooming with color. The Northern Renaissance was a world of detail, of patience, of soft light captured in silence, unlike Italy, where frescoes spread across chapel walls and marble domes reached skyward. The North turned inward into chambers, into households, into private devotion. Painters like Jan van Eyck, Rogier van der Weyden, Hans Memling worked not in sweeping ceilings, but in small altarpieces, their surfaces glowing with precision, each fold of fabric, each glint of jewel, each curl of hair was painted with care so fine it seemed woven of light itself. These works were not loud, they whispered devotion, humility, reflection. Oil painting, perfected in the North, became the medium of this quiet revolution. Where temper dried too quickly, oil lingered, allowing layers, glazes, depth. Painters could build surfaces slowly, stroke by stroke, until faces breathed, until glass reflected, until candlelight glowed. A chalice shone as if real, a pearl gleamed, a tear seemed about to fall. In this patience lay beauty, not in grandeur, but in intimacy. Imagine a Flemish workshop. The master sits before a panel of oak, smoothing its surface. Jars of pigments stand upon a shelf, vermilion, ultramarine, lead white, ground and mixed with oil. The painter dips his brush tiny, fine, and begins to lay color upon surface. Slowly an image forms. A Madonna, her face serene, her robe blue as twilight, her hands folded softly. Behind her, through a painted window, a tiny town is visible, houses, streets, even figures walking, painted so small they seem like whispers of life. Hours pass, yet the painter moves patiently, each stroke placed as though eternal. The Northern Renaissance was also about books, monks, and artisans. Illuminated manuscripts, filling margins with vines and flowers, birds and beasts. Gold leaf glowed upon pages, catching candlelight, making each word shine. These books were not only scripture, but art, each page a quiet devotion. Later, with the invention of printing, presses multiplied words. Books spread to towns and homes, carrying not only prayers, but knowledge, stories, maps, discoveries. The page became both tool and treasure, echoing softly across Europe. In churches, altarpieces glowed. Panels opened like wings, revealing saints, donors, angels, and Christ, all painted with tenderness. Candles flickered before them, their light mingling with painted light, real flame and illusion meeting. Worshippers knelt, their prayers whispered, their eyes lifting to figures so lifelike they seemed present. Art here was not for spectacle, but for devotion, for reflection, for silence. Daily life entered these paintings as well. Scenes of merchants, of marriages, of households found place beside sacred subjects. A wedding room with a small dog, convex mirror, shoes left upon floor. Each detail carried meaning, each whispering story of both faith and life. The sacred and the ordinary were not separate, but woven like threads of a single coif. Imagine a northern town in winter. Snow lies upon rooftops, smoke rises from chimneys. Inside a small house, a painter works by candlelight, his brush steady, his breath visible in cold air. Children sit by hearth, their laughter soft. Outside bells ring slowly, their sound muffled by snow. In such quiet, Art is born patient, intimate, enduring. The Northern Renaissance was not less than the Italian, it was different. Where Italy reached upward, the North looked inward. Where domes soared, panels whispered. Where frescoes glowed with grandeur, oil paintings shimmered with detail. Both were rebirth. Both were echoes, but each spoke in its own tone, and so has. We picture the Northern Renaissance tonight. We do not hear hammers building domes, nor scaffolds rising. We hear brushes upon panels, presses stamping pages, candles flickering before altarpieces. We see faces glowing softly, jewels shining faintly, snow falling quietly. We feel the patience of hands, the devotion of hearts, the echo of rebirth carried not in thunder, but in quiet light. The Renaissance is remembered for domes and frescoes, for voyages and discoveries. But at its heart was a quiet shift of thought. This was humanism, not the thunder of revolution, but the soft unfolding of a new way to see the world. Where once the gaze had been fixed upon heaven alone, now it turned gently toward the human, toward the dignity of the individual, the wisdom of the past, the possibilities of mind and heart. It was not denial of the divine, but rediscovery of the human, carried not in shouts, but in whispers of books, of letters, of quiet reflection. The word humanism comes from studia humanitatis, the study of humanity. It meant not only reading ancient texts, but cherishing them, savoring their rhythm, finding guidance in their lines, in monasteries and courts, in universities and workshops. Scholars bent over manuscripts, copying Cicero's words, Plato's dialogues, Virgil's verses. Their pens moved slowly, their voices murmured softly, each word an echo of a world one stop lost. They did not seek to abandon faith, but to balance it with reason. To see humanity not as shadow but as light. Imagine a small study in Florence. The room is lined with shelves, scrolls and codices stacked neatly. A scholar sits at his desk, candle burning low, the scent of wax mingling with ink. His hand moves across vellum, copying Latin letters with care. Beside him lies an ancient manuscript, its parchment fragile, its ink faded. He pauses often, tracing a word with his finger, whispering it aloud, tasting its sound. The words are old, yet they live again, breathed into present by his voice. Outside, the bells of Santa Croce ring faintly, their echo drifting through streets. Inside, silence hums with rediscovery. Humanism was not only about texts, it was about the self. It taught that human beings were not only frail creatures awaiting salvation, but capable of thought, of creation, of dignity. It turned eyes from cloisters to classrooms, from narrow script to broad conversation. Teachers spoke of rhetoric, of grammar, of ethics, of poetry. Students listened, debated, questioned. A young boy citing Cicero learned not only Latin but the cadence of argument. A girl reading Virgil's lines found not only story, but beauty of expression. In such lessons, humanity was lifted softly, quietly. The printing press carried these ideas further. Where once only scribes could multiply books, now presses stamp pages swiftly, their rhythm steady as heartbeat. Books of Cicero, of Plato, of Augustine spread through towns. A merchant might own a small volume, reading by firelight after trade. A student might carry a text, its margins filled with notes. A teacher might share copies with pupils, voices murmuring as they read together. Knowledge was no longer locked in monasteries. It drifted like wind, reaching places never before touched. Humanism did not discard faith. Many humanists were devout. Their studies meant not to oppose, but to enrich belief. They sought harmony between the wisdom of ancients and the truths of Scripture, between reason and devotion, between human dignity and divine grace. In their quiet words, we hear balance, not conflict. Imagine a gathering in a small Florentine courtyard. A teacher stands, his robe plain, his eyes bright. On him sit students, their tablets upon knees, pens ready. He reads a line from Cicero, pauses, explains its meaning. The students nod. Some ask questions, their voices low. The teacher answers. Gently, not commanding but guiding. Birds call from nearby trees, the sun glows upon tiled roofs. It is simple, yet it is rebirth, the dignity of learning, the rediscovery of human thought. Humanism also touched art. Painters began to show saints not only as distant, but as human. Their faces tender, their gestures real. Sculptors carved bodies with lifelike muscles, bones, veins, not only as symbols, but as beauty of creation itself. Writers wrote poems not only of God but of love, of friendship, of life. In every work, the human appeared not as shadow, but as presence. The spirit of humanism was gentle. It did not rush, it did not roar. It moved like water in stone channels, patient, persistent, soft. It carried voices of the past into present, not as commands but as companions. It whispered to generations that humanity itself was worthy of study, of dignity, of care. And so, as we picture humanism tonight, we do not hear debates shouted or wars fought. We hear pages turning softly, pens scratching upon parchment, teachers murmuring in courtyards, students leaning close. We see candlelight upon manuscripts, hands tracing letters, eyes lifted in thought. We feel the quiet rediscovery of the self, the gentle awakening of humanity, the soft echo of dignity that shaped the Renaissance and still lingers in our world. Some revolutions roar with armies, those with banners, but the Renaissance carried within it a revolution of silence, pages turned, letters inked, words multiplying in quiet rooms. This was the invention of the printing press, a machine of wood and iron that pressed ink upon paper, that gave books not only to kings and monasteries, but to merchants, students, and families. It was not thunder, but the soft rhythm of presses stamping, the whisper of knowledge spreading, a revolution carried in silence. Before this, books were rare. To copy a text was the work of months. Eveniers and monasteries, scribes bent over parchment, their quills scratching, their candles flickering, each letter drawn with care, each page slow in birth. A single Bible could take decades to finish, its pages adorned with gold. Its cost greater than a house. Books were treasures, locked in libraries, their voices heard only by few. But with the press came change. Johann Gutenberg of Mainz, in the mid-15th century, shaped movable type, small blocks of letters cast in metal that could be arranged, pressed, reused, words no longer chained to one page. One hand, one scribe, they could be multiplied endlessly, each page identical, each copy faithful, ink spread across paper not once, but many times, steady as heartbeat, quiet as breath. Imagine the first workshop, the air thick with the smell of ink, sharp and earthy. Wooden presses stand like giants, their screws turning slowly, their plates lowered gently. Printers move carefully, setting type one letter at a time, arranging lines upon frames. Sheets of paper are laid, ink rolled, plates pressed. The sound is steady creak of wood, thud of press, rustle of pages stacked. Outside, the city bustles, unaware that within these walls the world is changing forever. The first great work was the Gutenberg Bible, its pages crisp, its letters dark, its columns neat. When read aloud, its voice was clear, steady, identical. Across copies, no longer did one monastery hold the treasure of Scripture. Now many could read, many could hold, many could listen. From that point, books multiplied, their numbers swelling from hundreds to thousands, from thousands to millions. The press did not only copy Scripture, it spread the classics rediscovered by humanists, Plato, Cicero, Virgil, carrying their words across Europe. It spread new ideas, medicine, astronomy, geography, poetry. Maps were printed, charts drawn, voyages recorded. Students carried textbooks, merchants owned manuals, families held prayer books. The book, once rare as gold, became as common as bread. Its presence filled homes, halls, shops, churches. The printing press also gave rise to pamphlets, small and quick, voices of debate and reform. Ideas could now travel faster than armies, swifter than letters on horseback. The press whispered, yet its echoes shook kingdoms, reformations, revolutions. Discoveries all found their wings in printed words. But in the Renaissance itself, the press was first and foremost a gift of knowledge, spreading softly, patiently. Picture a student in Paris holding a small printed book. He reads by window light, his lips moving silently. The letters are crisp, clear, identical to those his friend reads in Florence, to those another student holds in London. They are connected, though oceans apart, by the sameness of print. Or imagine a family gathered by a hearth in Nuremberg, their father reading from a book of hours, its prayers flowing in rhythm, its pages printed, its cost within reach. Once only priests or nobles could afford such treasures. Now ordinary voices joined the chorus of words. The press did not silence scribes entirely. Manuscripts continued, illuminated books still made, beauty still traced by hand, but the balance shifted. The book was no longer fragile treasure, it was living presence. It could be copied, carried, read, questioned, remembered. It was not bound to a single monastery, but to the world. This quiet revolution shaped the Renaissance as deeply as domes or frescoes. Without the press, ideas might have stayed locked, whispered only in halls of scholars. With it, they drifted outward, like wind carrying seeds. A poem written in Florence might be read in Antwerp. A chart drawn in Lisbon might guide ships in Bristol. A thought born in a small study might echo across a continent. And so, as we picture the printing press tonight, we do not hear shouts or drums. We hear presses creaking, ink rolling, pages rustling. We see printers bent over frames, hands inky, brows furrowed. We see students reading, families listening, merchants learning. We feel the weight of words growing lighter, spreading farther. It is not thunder, it is whisper, soft and steady, carrying across centuries. The Renaissance was not only a rebirth of art and books, but also of horizons. Maps, once small and incomplete, began to stretch outward, their lines reaching beyond familiar coasts into seas unknown. Ships, once cautious along shores, began to push into open waters. Sailors, guided by stars and courage, crossed distances that once seemed impossible. This was the age of exploration, yet it did not come in thunderous charge, but in quiet voyages, in sails swelling slowly, in horizons opening gently across the sea. For centuries, Europeans had known only fragments of the world. The Mediterranean, with its warm waters and ancient ports, had been crossroads of trade. Beyond lay whispers of India, of Cathay, of islands rich with spice, of lands across oceans. Travelers like Marco Polo had spoken of wonders, but their words were echoes, stories carried faintly. Maps showed dragons where seas stretched empty, warnings where knowledge ended. Yet curiosity stirred, softly but steadily, as it had in books, as it had in art. The tools of exploration were simple but powerful. The compass, steady in hand, pointing always north. The astrolabe, measuring stars, guiding sailors across endless ways. The caravel, with its lateen sails, swift and steady, capable of riding winds into unknown waters. These were not grand inventions, but patient ones, small devices, sturdy ships, each giving courage to step further. Imagine Lisbon at dawn. Ships rest in harbor, their masts swaying gently. Sailors load barrels of water, sacks of grain, bundles of cloth. Merchants check manifests, their voices low, their hands counting coins. Priests bless voyages, their prayers rising softly. Families watch, their eyes lingering as husbands, sons, brothers step aboard. Slowly, sails rise, wind fills canvas, and ships glide out to sea. The city fades, horizon opens, silence surrounds. Voyages carried them along Africa's coasts, where deserts met sea, where gold and ivory filled markets. They sailed farther, round capes where waves roared, where storms tested patience. They reached India, its spices fragrant, its ports crowded. They sailed westward too, across vast Atlantic, where days passed with no land, only stars above, only sea below. For weeks silence pressed, broken only by creak of wood, splash of waves. murmur of prayers. Then at last, land green, distant, waiting. The explorer's stories are often told with noise, conquest, battles, empire, yet in their beginnings, they were quiet, a sailor on night watch, gazing at stars, a captain sketching coastlines in dim lantern light, a boy coiling ropes, his hands rough, his eyes wide, a cook stirring a pot of dried beans, the scent drifting across deck. Each voyage was not thunder, but rhythm, oars, waves, sails, breath. Maps grew slowly, their lines drawn in ink by candlelight, a new bay here, an island there, a coastline sketched with patience. Cartographers sat in workshops far from sea, tracing what sailors described, their pens moving carefully, their minds stitching fragments into whole. Each map was a whisper of discovery, not perfect, not complete, but echo of horizons widened. Picture a ship at night upon Atlantic, the sea dark, stars bright, the crew huddled in cloaks, their breath mist in cold air. The helmsman grips tiller, eyes upon compass above, sails billow softly, wind steady, silence spreads, broken only by creak of mast, sigh of waves. In that silence, the world grows larger, not in thunder, but in patient drift. Expiration brought exchange, sometimes harsh, sometimes gentle. Spices, silks, gold flowed into Europe. New foods, potatoes, tomatoes, maize, cocoa entered kitchens. New stories entered ears, yet also came sorrow, for conquest followed, and not all encounters were gentle. But in the first moments, before thunder, there was silence of what stars never seen, at coasts never known, at horizons once thought endless. The Renaissance exploration was not only about land, but about spirit. It was curiosity made voyage, wonder made sail. It was humanity stretching outward, not to conquer at first, but to see, to know, to imagine. Its rhythm was soft, its breath steady, its heart patient. And so, as we picture exploration tonight, we do not hear cannons or shouts. We hear sails snapping softly, ropes creaking, waves whispering. We see sailors gazing at stars, captains tracing maps, children watching ships vanish on horizon. We feel the quiet courage of leaving shore, the soft echo of discovery carried upon sea. The Renaissance is often remembered for its arc paintings glowing with color, sculptures alive with form, domes lifting into sky, yet beneath the strokes of brushes and chisels of marble. Another rebirth was quietly unfolding. It was a rebirth of knowledge, of inquiry, of patient observation. The Renaissance of science did not arrive in shouts of discovery, but in whispers, stars charted in silence, liquids poured drop by drop, pages filled with numbers, sketches, and notes. It was not thunder, but soft curiosity shaping the world anew. For centuries, much knowledge had rested in books of Aristotle, Galen, Ptolemy. Voices from antiquity revered, copied, trusted. Medieval scholars read them, repeated them, taught them. Yet in the Renaissance, some began not only to read but to look, to measure stars not only in words, but in sight, to cut open bodies not only in theory but in practice, to weigh, to time, to test. Slowly, gently, the habit of authority gave way to the patience of observation. Imagine a scholar's study in Padua. The room is narrow, lit by candlelight. Shelves carry manuscripts, some old, some newly printed. Upon a table lie instruments, an astrolabe, a compass, glass flasks, parchment filled with sketches of stars and notes in Latin. The scholar leans close to a lens, a new device of ground glass that magnifies what the eye cannot see. He breathes slowly, steady, recording what appears before him. Outside, the bells of the university ring softly. Inside, the silence is filled with wonder. Astronomy was among the first fields to stir anew. Men like Nicolaus Copernicus studied the heavens, patient in their calculations. For centuries, it was believed the earth sat still, the heavens turning around it. But Copernicus, in quiet reflection, traced the motions of planets. Their patterns irregular, unless seen differently. Slowly, he concluded that it was not the heavens that moved around Earth, but Earth itself moving around the sun. This was a quiet thought whispered in books, not shouted in streets. His work, De Revolutionibus, printed late in his life, spread softly, its echoes reshaping the universe. Anatomy, too, awakened. In theaters of medicine, bodies were opened not in secrecy but in study. Andreas Vesalius, in his De Humani Corporis Fabrica, drew muscles, bones, veins with care, his hands steady, his eyes sharp. The drawings were not harsh, but almost tender. Each muscle shone like art, each bone traced like sculpture. Students watched in silence, their pens scratching notes, their faces pale but their minds alive. The human body, long a mystery, became a map, its pathways revealed in patience. In physics and mechanics, simple experiments were tried. Pendulums swung, weights dropped, water flowed through tubes. Galileo, in later years, would watch lamps sway in cathedrals, timing their rhythm against his pulse. He would drop objects from towers, listening not for thunder, but for patterns. His telescope, pointed at sky, revealed moons circling Jupiter, stars unseen, craters upon the moon. Each discovery made not in noise but in steady gaze, in quiet calculation. The Renaissance spirit of science was not haste, but patience. Scholars spent nights tracing stars, their eyes weary yet steady. They spent hours measuring, recording, drawing. Their work was often slow, sometimes dotted, often unnoticed. Yet like drops filling a vessel, their patience reshaped knowledge. The world was no longer only what was said, it was what was seen, measured, tested. Picture an anatomy hall in winter. Candles flicker, their light trembling upon walls. A professor stands over a table, his voice low, pointing to muscles revealed. Students lean close, their cloaks wrapped, their pens scratching. The air is heavy, but the silence is deeper, silence of curiosity, of wonder. Or imagine an astronomer upon a tower, cloak drawn against night air, his eyes fixed upon stars. He marks their position upon parchment, his hand trembling with cold but steady with devotion. The bells strike midnight, yet still he watches, his heart steady, his breath slow. These quiet acts carried great echoes. They did not overthrow the world at once, but they planted seeds, slowly. Generations learned to question, to observe, to test. Slowly, the earth moved from center to orbit. Slowly, the body became known. Slowly, stars revealed themselves not as points upon crystal spheres, but as distant suns. Slowly, knowledge became not only preserved but pursued. The Renaissance of science was not thunder, it was whisper. It was ink upon parchment, lines upon diagrams, drops in glass, weights upon scales. It was patience, humility, curiosity. It was men and women bending close, listening to nature speak softly. And in their silence, the world changed. And so, as we picture science tonight, we do not hear noise of machines or clash of debates. We hear pens scratching, pages turning, pendulums swinging. We see scholars bent over books, astronomers gazing at stars, students leaning in dim halls. We feel the patience of inquiry, the gentle rediscovery of nature, the soft echo of science shaping the Renaissance. If art gave the Renaissance its colors, and science gave it its stars, then music gave it its breath. The Renaissance was not only seen and written, but sung. Its voice carried softly through chapels, through courts, through quiet homes. This was not the thunder of drums or the roar of battle horns, but the gentle weaving of harmonies, voices joining together in patient rhythm. The music of the Renaissance was a soft unfolding, a calm tide of sound that mirrored the rebirth of thought. And art. Medieval music had been monophonic, a single line of chant, plain and unadorned. In the Renaissance, voices began to weave together, each independent yet united, forming polyphony. Like threads in a tapestry, the lines interlaced, rising and falling, entering and fading, creating patterns of sound as intricate as any carving, as luminous as any painting. It was not spectacle, but patience. A motet might last minutes, yet feel timeless, its echoes like ripples across water. Imagine a chapel at dawn, Candles flicker along stone walls. Their flames steady. Chore boys in plain robes stand in rows, their eyes on parchment. A choir master raises his hand, and voices rise, not loud but steady, clear. Each voice carries a line, distinct yet blending, like stars in constellation. The sound fills the air softly, climbing arches, touching vaults, lingering like incense. Outside, the city stirs, bells begin to ring, but inside the chapel time seems to pause. Composers like Josquin des Prez, Palestrina, and Orlando de Lasso shaped these sounds. They wrote music that was both structured and free, both learned and natural. Josquin's motets flowed like rivers, voices echoing one another in calm dialogue. Palestrina's masses lifted devotion with clarity, their lines pure, their harmonies serene. Orlando de Lasso wrote madrigals, secular songs of love, joy, sorrow, bringing music into homes and gatherings. Each note was laid with care, each harmony a gentle echo. Instruments, too, found new voice. The lute, with its rounded body and many strings, strummed softly in chambers, its sound intimate, warm. The viol, ancestor of the violin, played with bow, its tone gentle, human-like. Recorders and flutes breathed air into melody, their notes light as birdsong. In courts and homes ensembles played danses, pavans slow and measured, gallards lively yet graceful. Music was not only for church, but for life, woven into feasts, into celebrations, into evenings by a hearth. Picture a Florentine courtyard. At dusk, lanterns glow softly, casting light upon tiled walls. Musicians sit with lutes and viols, their fingers plucking, their bows gliding. A small group of listeners sit nearby, cloaks wrapped, their faces calm. The music drifts upward, mingling with scent of orange blossoms, with stars appearing above. It is not performance, but presence, sound shaping silence. Silence shaping sound. The invention of printing touched music as well. Once, scores had to be copied by hand, notes drawn slowly, pages rare. But presses soon began to print music, their notes stamped in black ink, their voices multiplied. A choir in Paris could sing the same motet as one in Venice, their harmonies, crossing mountains, carried in ink. Families could own small books of songs, their voices blending by firelight, their homes filled with harmony. Music, like words, became not only treasure, but companion. Renaissance music was balanced between sacred and secular, between voices and instruments, between structure and freedom. It reflected humanism, for it lifted not only heavenward but also earthward, celebrating love, friendship, nature. It reflected science, for it sought proportion, harmony, order. It reflected art, for it painted with sound, shaping light and shadow, tension and release. It was not thunder, but soft harmony, enduring calm. Imagine a quiet home in Antwerp. A family gathers around a table, their candle burning low. A father opens a small printed book of madrigals, his voice leading softly. His wife and children join, their voices blending, their laughter quiet between verses. Outside, snow falls gently, muffling the streets. Inside, harmony warms the air. This is Renaissance music, not grand alone, but intimate, woven into daily life. And so, as we picture the Renaissance tonight, we do not hear noise of crowds or roar of battles. We hear voices in harmony, lutes strumming softly, viols humming, flutes sighing. We see choirs in chapels, families by hearths, musicians in courtyards. We feel sound weaving silence, silence carrying sound, both in gentle balance. The Renaissance sings not in thunder, but in whisper and harmony, in soft echoes that linger still. When we think of the Renaissance, we often imagine domes and frescoes, voyages and discoveries, scholars and princes. Yet beneath these shining heights lay the quiet fabric of daily life. The Renaissance was not lived only in palaces or cathedrals, but in kitchens, in fields, in narrow streets. Its true rhythm was not thunder, but steady pulse, footsteps on cobblestones, looms tapping in rhythm, fires crackling in hearths. This was the life that carried art, science, music, and thought not loud, not grand, but patient, ordinary, enduring. Marketplace in every city, from Florence to Nuremberg. Life began in the markets. At dawn, stalls were set beneath arches or in piazzas, their awnings bright with cloth. Merchants arranged baskets of fruit, apples, pears, grapes, figs. Fishermen laid out their catch. The smell of salt lingering. Bakers carried loaves warm from ovens, their crusts crackling. Butchers displayed cuts of meat, cheeses stacked beside them. Voices murmured, coins clinked, hands gestured. There was no roar, only steady hum. Like bees at hive, children darted between stalls, their laughter mixing with sellers' calls. Women bargained softly, weighing coins, weighing produce. Men carried sacks of grain, barrels of wine, bolts of cloth. Monks passed quietly, their baskets filling with alms. The market was both work and meeting place, where neighbors greeted, where news drifted, where daily life bound itself together. The workshops hung through narrow streets. Carpenters sawed wood, the sound steady, their hands guiding planes. Smiths hammered iron, sparks flying in rhythm. Weavers sat at looms, shuttles tapping, threads crossing patiently. Painters ground pigments, sculptors chipped marble, printers set type, tailors cut cloth. Apprentices carried tools, swept floors, fetched water, their eyes learning as their hands served. Masters guided with quiet words. Their craft passed slowly, patiently, from one generation to the next. In some streets, one could hear music of labor. Hammer saw loom, chisel, each sound distinct, yet together forming harmony. Of work. The Renaissance was not only painted in chapels or sung in choirs, it was woven in cloth, hammered in iron, baked in bread, copied in books. The home inside homes, life followed gentle rhythms. In morning fires were kindled, bread sliced, milk poured, children washed sleep from faces, women spun wool, men prepared for work. At midday meals of bread, cheese, beans, perhaps meat if fortune allowed, were shared. At evening families gathered by hearth, voices low, laughter soft. The home was not large rooms, small, furniture plain, walls simple. Yet it was warm, steady, a shelter from markets and streets. In one corner, a loom might stand, its threads half woven. In another, shelves with jars of herbs, medicines, spices. A chest held clothes, linens, treasured books. The hearth was hard, its fire steady, its smoke curling round it. Life moved in circles, slow, calm, enduring. Festivals and faith. Though daily life was steady, it was also punctuated by festivals. Processions wound through streets, banners waving, bells ringing, musicians played, dancers stepped, children ran in joy. Feasts filled tables, roasted meats, sweet pastries, wine flowing. Neighbors gathered, voices louder than usual, laughter carrying. Yet even here, the rhythm was more joy than roar, more glow than blaze. Faith guided much of daily life. Bells called to prayer, churches filled with murmurs, candles lit before saints. Families prayed at meals, whispered psalms at night. Festivals marked seasons, Easter, Christmas. Saints' days, each shaping rhythm of year. Life was not loud, with belief but steady, woven into days like thread into cloth. The streets at night, streets grew quiet. Lamps glowed faintly, their oil flickering. Merchants closed stalls, shutters drawn, doors barred. Pets wandered, dogs curled in corners. Watchmen passed with lanterns. Within homes, fires dinned. Voices hushed, children slept outside only. Occasional sound, footsteps, bell ringing, wind through alleys. The city rested, preparing for dawn again. Imagination of a day picture, day in Florence. Dawn rises over Arno, it's like touching domes and roofs. Bells ring, market stirs, streets fill. Midday heat slows steps. Families share bread, workers pause. Afternoon brings hum of workshops. Looms tapping, chisels striking. Evening descends. Fires glow in hearths. Music drifts in courtyards. Children laugh. Night falls, streets quiet. Stars shine above. City sleeps. Nothing grand, nothing thunderous, yet in these rhythms lies life itself. The Renaissance was not only art upon chapel ceilings or voyages across seas. It was the weaving of cloth, the baking of bread, the laughter of children, the prayers of families. It was ordinary life, lived patiently, steadily, quietly, and without it, no dome would have risen, no book printed, no voyage begun. And so, as we picture daily life tonight, we do not see kings or popes. We see bakers at ovens, women at looms, children at play, families at hearth. We hear markets humming, workshops tapping, bells ringing, fires crackling. We feel the rhythm of days, soft, calm, eternal. This was the Renaissance, not only rebirth of art, but steady breath of life. When we speak of the Renaissance, we remember domes that lift into sky, frescoes that glow upon chapel walls, statues that seem alive, books that spread across Europe. Yet behind every brushstroke, behind every chisel mark, behind every page of ink, there were hands unseen. The Renaissance was not shaped only by artists and scholars, but also by patrons, those who gave quietly, who supported, who trusted, who guided. Their presence was not thunderous. It was soft, steady, like the hand that steadies a candle so its flame may glow. The power of patronage in cities like Florence, Venice, Rome, and beyond. Families of wealth and influence saw art not only as beauty, but as necessity. The Medici in Florence, the Gonzaga in Mantua, the Sforza in Milan, the popes in Rome each played their part. They gave gold for paint, marble for statues, stone for domes, parchment for books. They opened their halls to scholars, their chapels to artists, their courts to musicians. But their giving was not always for grandeur alone. It was also for devotion, for memory, for legacy. A merchant might commission an altarpiece for his parish, church, his family painted in corner, hands folded in prayer. A banker might support a sculptor, his statue set in piazza as gift to city. A prince might call scholars to his court, their words echoing in halls. Patronage was not always lauded, was often quiet, woven into fabric of life. The Medici and Florentino family is more remembered in this role than the Medici. Bankers by trade, they became quiet architects of Florence's rebirth. Cosimo de' Medici supported Brunelleschi in raising the great dome of Santa Maria del Fiore. Its stones balanced like shell against sky. Lorenzo de' Medici, called Il Magnifico, gathered poets, painters, philosophers, giving them freedom to work, to think, to create. In their palaces, art was not decoration, but breath. Imagine a meeting in the Medici palace. A young painter stands nervously, his sketches laid upon table. Lorenzo leans forward, his voice calm, his hand gesturing. He offers support, not command, but trust. The painter bows, his heart steadying, his future opened. Outside, Florence hums with work, but within these halls, a quiet promise takes root. From such moments, masterpieces grow. Patronage in Rome and beyond. In Rome, the popes acted as patrons of grandeur. Julius II summoned Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel, Raphael to decorate papal rooms, Bernardi to design St. Peter's. Yet beneath the scale of these works lay simple acts of trust. An artist given a commission, paid in coin, supported in labor. The Vatican's marble walls glowed not by miracle, but by steady hands of patrons guiding, funding, encouraging. In Mantua, Isabella d'Este, one of the most remarkable patrons of her time, gathered painters and writers, musicians and scholars. She corresponded with kings and artists, her letters filled with care, her support unwavering. She did not wield armies, but her influence flowed through art, her legacy woven into canvases and words. Patronage in daily life. Patronage was not only for great families. In small towns, guilds of craftsmen supported chapels, commissioning frescoes and altarpieces. Merchants gave to their parishes, their coins building schools, hospitals, libraries. Even modest gifts shaped the Renaissance, for each coin added paint to canvas, stone to wall, parchment to book. The rebirth was not only built by few, but by many, their giving quiet yet lasting. The gentle balance of patronage was a balance between artist and supporter, between vision and means. Sometimes it was controlling, shaping what was painted, what was carved, but often it was trust, a hand extended, a voice encouraging, a door opened. Without it, many masterpieces might never have been made. With it, they flourished. Picture a sculptor in his workshop, marble block before him, tools ready, but no means to work without support. A patron enters, offers coin, offers trust. The sculptor bows, lifts his chisel, begins. Weeks pass, months pass, until form emerges, figure breathing in stone. Without the quiet hand behind him, the chisel might never have struck. The legacy of patronage Renaissance reminds us that greatness is not only in genius, but in support. Artists and scholars shone, but behind them were patrons who believed, who gave, who encouraged. Their names sometimes remembered, sometimes forgotten, but their presence felt in every dome, every fresco, every book. And so, as we picture patronage tonight, we do not hear shouts of power or clash of wealth. We hear quiet conversations in palace halls, coins laid upon tables, contracts signed in steady hands. We see artists presenting sketches, patrons nodding softly. We feel trust given, support offered, creation nurtured. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was echo, and behind every echo was a hand unseen, guiding softly, holding steady, letting flame of art and knowledge glow eternal. The Renaissance was not only domes lifting into sky, not only frescoes glowing with color, not only voyages reaching across unknown seas. Its true strength was also in small rooms, in courtyards, in cloisters, places where children bent over tablets, where teachers spoke slowly, where pages of books were copied, read, and remembered. The Renaissance was built upon learning, and learning itself is never thunder, but whisper. It grows not in noise but in patience. From monastic schools to humanist classrooms in the centuries before the Renaissance, education had rested mostly in monasteries. Monks copied manuscripts, taught boys Latin, trained them for prayer, for service, for the life of the church. But with humanism, learning broadened. Now grammar, rhetoric, poetry, history, moral philosophy, the studia humanitatis were valued. Education turned not only to heaven but also to the dignity of man, to the beauty of words, to the wisdom of the ancients. Imagine a small school in Florence. The teacher sits upon a wooden bench, robe plain, book in hand. Around him boys sit upon stools, wax tablets balanced upon knees. The teacher reads a line of Cicero, his voice calm, explaining its meaning. The students repeat, some stumbling, some steady. He corrects them gently, encouraging, guiding. Outside, the sounds of marketplace drift faintly, but within the classroom hums with words, soft and patient. Universities and expanding knowledge universes, born in the Middle Ages, flourished in the Renaissance. Padua, Bologna, Paris, Oxford, Salamanca, they filled with students from many lands. Their halls echoed not with shouts, but with murmurs of lectures, the scratch of pens, the rustle of parchment. In Padua, medicine thrived. In Bologna, law. In Paris, theology. In Salamanca, astronomy. Students debated softly in courtyards, argued in taverns, copied notes late into night. Picture a lecture hall in Padua. Wooden benches creak beneath rows of students, their cloaks drawn against you. A professor stands at podium, his voice slow, measured. He quotes Aristotle, compares him to newer observations. Pens scratch, pages fill, candles flicker. Outside, snow drifts across streets. But inside, knowledge grows line by line. Printing and the spread of learning. Printing press transformed classrooms. Once only a few could afford books. Manuscripts copied by hand, their costuments. Now printed textbooks spread, their pages clear, their prices lower. Students could own their own books, mark margins, carry them from city to city. Knowledge was no longer chained to lecterns, it traveled, whispered from one mind to another. A student in Paris might own the same book as one in Florence, their fingers tracing same lines. their thoughts joining across distance. Education became not only local, but shared, spreading softly, patiently, across Europe. Girls and learning, though education was still often for boys, the Renaissance also opened small doors for women. Some daughters of noble families studied languages, read poetry, learned music, sometimes even philosophy, in courts like Mantua or Ferrara. Women such as Isabella d'Este or Vittoria Colonna became patrons and poets, their words shaping culture. Their learning was not loud but steady, showing that wisdom, like light, cannot be confined. Picture a girl in a noble household, seated by a window, a book upon her lap. Her tutor stands beside, guiding her finger along lines of Latin. She reads, slowly, her voice soft, her eyes bright. Outside, garden rustles in breeze, but inside, a seed of knowledge takes root. The rhythm of learning education was not fast. It was repetition, memorization, patient guidance. Students copied lines, recited aloud, debated gently, practiced writing. Teachers corrected, encouraged, repeated, day after day, year after year. The rhythm shaped minds. Knowledge did not come in thunder, it came in drops, steady as rain. At night in small rooms, students studied by candlelight, their eyes weary, their pens slow. In the morning, teachers opened lessons once again, their voices calm, their patience endless. Learning was not spectacle, it was rhythm. And in that rhythm, the Renaissance was carried forward. Legacy of quiet learning. The Renaissance gave us domes, voyages, discoveries. But none of these would have been possible without classrooms, without teachers, without pages filled in silence. Education was the soil in which all else grew. And though names of artists and kings are remembered, behind them stood countless teachers, students, parents' voices, quiet, forgotten, yet eternal. And so, as we picture education tonight, we do not see noise or grandeur. We see small classrooms, wooden benches, wax tablets, books upon desks. We hear teachers' calm voices, students' soft recitations, pens scratching upon parchment. We feel the patience of learning, the dignity of thought, the gentle echo of wisdom carried across centuries. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper, and its whisper was strongest in the quiet rhythm of education. The Renaissance was an age of images, of words, of voyages, but it was also an age of stone. Buildings, like voices, rose slowly, patient in their making, enduring in their silence. Where the Middle Ages had built spires that pierced sky in Gothic grace, the Renaissance turned to balance, to harmony, to domes that curved like heavens themselves. Architecture was not thunderous, it was patient, one stone laid upon another, each measured, each guided, each whispering into eternity. The return of ancient forms. Architects of the Renaissance looked back to Rome, to Greece, to ruins worn by centuries yet still alive with proportion. They studied columns broken but still upright, arches weathered but still spanning, domes fallen yet still remembered. They measured carefully, drew slowly, traced lines upon parchment. In these fragments, they saw not ruin but guide. To them, ancient stones spoke softly of balance, of harmony, of order. Brunelleschi, Alberti, Bramante, names now remembered, but then simply men with parchment and compass, rulers and dreams. They did not seek to overwhelm, but to restore harmony. Their buildings spoke with calm geometry, circles, squares, arches, domes. Proportion was their music, silence their rhythm. The great dome of Florence, perhaps nothing embodies this quiet grandeur more than Brunelleschi's dome. For decades, Florence had dreamed of completing the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, its vast opening waiting, its stones yearning upward. But no one knew how to span such space, how to lift such weight. Brunelleschi, patient, inventive, studied ancient Rome, studied geometry, studied machines. He built models, tested ideas, trusted balance. At last, he began slowly, stone by stone, layer by layer. The dome rose. Workers hauled bricks high, their ropes creaking, their pulleys turning. The sun moved across sky. Seasons passed, years slipped by. Below, Florence bustled, but above, the dome grew silent, steady, immense. When at last it was complete, its curve lifted like sky, its presence serene. To stand beneath it was not to feel noise, but calm, as if heaven itself rested above. Churches and chapels bay in Florence, other churches rose in quiet splendor. In Mantua, Alberti's facades stood balanced, their columns calm, their arches measured. In Rome, Bramante began St. Peter's Basilica, its plan clear, its dome and vision vast and harmonious. Michelangelo, later, would shape its final form. His hand steady, his eye upon eternity. Chapels filled with frescoes, their walls glowing, their stones framing silence. In every arch, every vault, there was not rush but patience. Builders worked in rhythm, stone cut, lifted, set, aligned. Their songs carried faintly through air, their hammers tapping in steady beat. Architecture was labor, but also devotion, each stone an offering, each wall a prayer. Palaces and homes. Renaissance was not only churches, but palaces. In Florence, the Medici Palace rose with calm solidity, its stones rough below, smoother above, windows evenly spaced. Within its walls, courtyards opened, arches framing sky, fountains murmuring softly. In Venice, palazzi faced canals, their facades mirrored in water, their marble glowing in sunlight. These were not castles of defense, but homes of beauty, places where art and life mingled. Even ordinary homes reflected new balance. Windows framed symmetrically, doors centered, proportions measured. Streets grew orderly, piazzas opened with grace, fountains carved with care. The city itself became harmony, stone and space arranged in calm. Civic space. Renaissance architecture also shaped civic life. Town halls rose with towers steady, their bells marking hours. Markets stood beneath loggias, their arches sheltering. Merchants' bridges spanned rivers, their stones strong yet graceful. Cities breathed not only with work but with presence, their forms carrying both dignity and calm. Imagine Piazza della Signoria in Florence at dusk. Air cool, the stones glowing faintly, statues standing in niches, lamps flickering. Citizens gather, their voices low, their footsteps echoing upon pavement. The buildings rise around, balanced, steady, timeless. It is not noise, it is harmony. Architecture, as patience. Architecture required time, decades, even centuries. Workers laid foundations knowing they might not see completion. Sons continued fathers' labor, grandsons still carried stones. To build was to trust the future, to offer silence to coming generations. Each column, each dome, each arch whispered not of haste, but of endurance. Picture a mason in Rome, chisel in hand, shaping block of marble. He knows his work will rest high upon wall, unseen by most, yet he carves carefully, aligns patiently. Day by day he returns, each stone another note in silent symphony. His name forgotten, his work endures. This was Renaissance architecture, not spectacle of ego, but patience of hands, legacy of stone. Renaissance gave us paintings and poems, music and science. Yet its stones endure perhaps most of all. Domes still rise, arches still span, piazzas still open. To walk through Florence, Venice, Rome's to feel silence of centuries, stones holding memory, harmony alive. And so, as we picture architecture tonight, we do not hear clamor of tools or shouts of builders. We hear stones placed gently, ropes creaking softly, hammers tapping in rhythm. We see domes rising, arches steady, piazzas opening. We feel calm of proportion, dignity of harmony, silence of stone. The Renaissance built not thunder, but balance, and its domes still rise silent, eternal. The Renaissance gave us domes that seemed to lift skyward and frescoes that filled walls with color, but it also gave us something quieter, more enduring, marble that seemed to breathe. Sculpture in the Renaissance was not thunder, but silence, blocks of stone slowly shaped into faces, into bodies, into gestures that spoke without words. Each chisel strike was small, each cut patient, yet together they brought forth forms that seemed alive, eternal. glowing softly in quiet halls, the whisper of stone for centuries before. In the Middle Ages, sculpture had been stiff, symbolic, bound by convention. Saints stood rigid, kings frozen in solemn poses. But Renaissance artists, inspired by ancient Rome and Greece, sought to let stone breathe again. They studied fragments of old statues, broken torsos, weathered faces, chipped arms. From these remains, they learned balance, proportion, motion. They saw not only stone but life within it. To carve was to listen. A block of marble seemed silent, yet within it lay form waiting, hidden. The sculptor's hand, patient, steady, coaxed it forth. Each strike of chisel released curve of shoulder, tilt of head, fold of robe. The work took months, years. Each day another whisper, until at last the stone stood transformed. Donatello, quiet drama in bronze and stone. Donatello, among their earliest masters, gave sculpture no voice. His David, cast in bronze, stood not as rigid warrior but as boy, youthful, graceful, serene. His Mary Magdalene, carved in wood, carried not grandeur but sorrow, her face lined, her figure gaunt, her presence silent yet powerful. Donatello did not need thunder. His statues whispered humanity, frailty, strength, all at once. Imagine his workshop. Blocks of stone stacked, tools laid out, assistants sweeping dust. Donatello bends over figure, his chisel tapping gently. The air filled with faint rhythm, stone against steel, dust falling softly, silence between strikes. Slowly, the face emerges, eyes deep, lips parted as if to breathe. Outside, Florence bustles inside. Time pauses. Michelangelo, marble as life. 5. Donatello gave stone voice. Michelangelo gave it soul. For him, every block of marble already contained the figure within it. Was only his task to free it. His David, carved from flawed marble, towers in calm strength, his gaze steady, his stance balanced. His Pita, in St. Peter's, shows Mary, cradling Christ, her face serene, her robes flowing like water, her sorrow quiet but eternal. Michelangelo struck with force, yet with patience. He would labor alone, night after night, candle fixed to his helmet, shadows flickering across walls. Each chisel stroke resounded in silence, each cut bringing form nearer. He once said he saw the angel in marble, and carved until he set it free. Picture him at work in dim chapel, the marble looms white and immense. His tools rest nearby, dust thick upon floor. He strikes, chips fall, his breath steady. Hours pass, yet he continues. Each movement measured, each pause long. At last, a hand emerges, fingers delicate, veins lifelike. The stone, once mute, now speaks. Everyday sculpture. Not all sculpture was monumental. In small chapels, altarpieces were carved with saints, their gestures gentle. In homes, busts of ancestors were shaped, their faces remembered. In gardens, fountains spouted from carved figures, nymphs, lions, angels, water gliding across stone, sound mingling with silence. Sculpture was part of daily life, not only grandeur but intimacy. The patience of carving. To carve was to wait. Unlike painting, where color flowed quickly, sculpture moved slowly. A single block might take years, a figure longer. Apprentices hauled stone, polished surfaces, sharpened tools. Masters measured, marked, struck. Each day ended with little progress, yet over time the block transformed. It was endurance, patience, silence. Imagine a young apprentice polishing marble in workshop. His cloth moves in circles, dust rising faintly, stone smoothing beneath his touch. He does not yet carve, but learns patience. On him, unfinished statues stand. Their forms half-emerged, faces without eyes, bodies without arms. The workshop hums softly with labor, each sound a whisper of creation. Legacy in stone. Renaissance gave us paintings that fade, music that drifts, books that wear, but its sculptures endure. Stone carrying faces across centuries. To stand before Michelangelo's David, Donatello's Magdalene, Ghiberti's bronze doors, is to feel not noise but stillness. Stone holding memory, silence holding voice. And so, as we picture Renaissance sculpture tonight, We do not hear thunder of tools or clamor of crowds. We hear chisels tapping gently, dust falling, footsteps echoing in quiet chapels. We see marble glowing forms emerging, faces serene. We feel patience of stone, endurance of silence, breath of eternity. Sculpture is not thunder, it is whisper, and its whisper remains. The Renaissance is often remembered first through its paintings, canvases that glow with color, frescoes that cover chapel walls, panels that whisper stories across centuries. Yet behind each image lay patience, silence, devotion. Renaissance painting was not thunderous. It was soft light upon pigment, brush upon panel, story told without voice. Each stroke was small, each color prepared with care. Yet together they created visions that have never faded. The quiet birth of oil and fresco. Renaissance inherited to traditions of painting. The fresco, painted upon wet plaster, its colors binding into wall, and the panel or canvas, where tempera and later all paints created glowing surfaces. Frescoes were vast, covering ceilings, and chapels, their making laborious. Oil paintings were intimate. Their goal layered slowly. Both required patience. Both carried silence. In a workshop, pigments were ground from minerals, lapis lazuli for blue, cinnabar for red, malachite for green. Apprentices crushed them into powders, mixed them with egg yolk for tempera, with oil for glazes. The sound was soft, mortar grinding, pestle turning. Brushes of hog bristle or fine hair were shaped, panels sanded smooth, plaster spread upon walls. Hours of preparation for moments of painting, yet even then each stroke took time. The Italian master Scotto, before the Renaissance, had softened medieval stiffness, his figures human, tender, alive. In Florence, Masaccio painted the Holy Trinity, its perspective deep, its figures grounded in space. Fra Angelico, in his convent, painted angels glowing, their faces serene, their wings luminous. Each figure like prayer upon wall. Then came Leonardo da Vinci, whose brush captured not only form but breath. His Mona Lisa sits in silence, her smile soft, her gaze calm, her presence alive. The sfumato layers of thin paint, blurred edges, created softness, made flesh seem real. Leonardo did not shout. He whispered in paint, his figures breathing gently across centuries. Michelangelo, though sculptor at heart, covered the Sistine ceiling with frescoes vast, yet each figure alive with quiet dignity. The creation of Adam, hands nearly touching, carries no noise, only silence of gesture, echo of life given. Raphael, in contrast, painted harmony, his Madonnas tender, his rooms filled with balanced figures. His school of Athens brings philosophers together in calm dialogue, their gestures soft, their robes flowing. The northern masters in the north, painting took another path, detail upon detail, intimacy of oil. Jan van Eyck painted light upon jewels, glass, fabric, each thread visible, each reflection glowing. His Arnolfini portrait shows not grandeur but quiet presence, a couple holding hands, a dog at feet, a convex mirror reflecting room. Roger van der Weyden painted sorrow tenderly, faces wet with tears, each line delicate. Hieronymus Bosch filled panels with dreams and visions, yet even his chaos painted with patience, each creature drawn with care. The workshop atmosphere. Imagine a painter's workshop in Florence. Light filters through small windows, falling upon jars of pigment, panels leaning against walls. Apprentices grind colors, stretch canvas, prepare brushes. The master bends over panel, his hand steady, his brush fine. He lays one stroke, pauses, breathes, lays another. Silence fills room, broken only by grinding, by soft murmur of voices outside. Bells ring faintly inside, time slows. Or imagine a fresco in progress. Scaffolds rise high in chapel, plaster spread upon wall still wet. Painter climbs, brush in hand, pigments mixed quickly. He must work before plaster dries. His strokes swift yet careful. Assistants bring bowls, clean brushes, prepare next section. Hours pass in rhythm, each stroke absorbed into wall forever. Silence hums between voices, labor steady, devotion calm. Painting as storytelling. Grenis painting told stories not loudly, but with images that linger. A Madonna with child, her gaze tender, tells of love. A martyr serene, tells of faith. A portrait calm, tells of dignity. Each figure, each gesture, each color carried meaning. To those who could not read, paintings were books. To those who prayed, they were windows. To all, they were silence speaking. The rhythm of color painting was slow. Oils required layers, glazes drying between. A face might take weeks. Each shadow deepened, each light softened. Frescoes demanded speed, but only after days of preparation. Every detail, from folds of robe to glint of eye, was placed with care. The artist's hand steady, his mind patient. Painting was not rush, it was rhythm. Legacy of silence in paint. Renaissance gave us paintings that endure still. To stand before them is to feel calm, to hear silence. The Mona Lisa does not speak, yet her smile lingers. The Pieta glows softly, its sorrow quiet. Van Eyck's portraits shimmer with detail, yet remain still. These works do not roar, they whisper, and their whisper carries across centuries. Steady, eternal. And so, as we picture painting tonight, we do not hear clamor of workshops or noise of cities. We hear grinding of pigment, brushing of strokes, murmurs of apprentices. We see colors, glowing figures, serene stories unfolding in silence. We feel patience of artists, devotion of hands, calm of images. The Renaissance painted not thunder, but soft colors, silent stories. The Renaissance was a rebirth of light in many forms. Domes rising into sky, frescoes glowing on walls, music drifting in chapels. Yet one of its gentlest, most enduring gifts was in the world of words. Renaissance literature was not thunder, but murmur, the sound of quills upon parchment, of pages turning softly, of voices reading aloud in quiet rooms. It was poetry and prose, philosophy and plays, letters and stories. Its strength was patience, its legacy silence carried in words. The rediscovery of the ancients before new words came. Old ones were rediscovered. Scholars sought out forgotten manuscripts of Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, Virgil. They traveled to monasteries, to libraries, to distant courts, searching for volumes hidden, copied, neglected. When found, these books were cherished, copied again, printed, read. Their words, once silent, spoke anew. Imagine a scholar in Florence. His candle burns low, his desk covered with scrolls. He opens a faded manuscript, its ink pale, its parchment fragile. Slowly, he traces each word, whispers it aloud, savoring sound. To him, Cicero's voice lives again, Plato speaks again, Virgil sings again. Outside, bells echo faintly inside. Silence is filled with voices of the past. The humanist writers' new voices rose beside the old. Writers of the Renaissance did not only copy, they created. They wrote of humanity, of dignity, of love, of friendship, of virtue. They blended faith with reason, devotion with curiosity. Petrarch, often called the father of humanism, filled pages with sonnets, poems of longing, of beauty, of times passing. His words were soft, his voice intimate, yet his echo vast. Boccaccio wrote tales in the Decameron, stories told by 10 youths fleeing plague, their voices weaving humor, sorrow, wisdom. His book was not thunder of philosophy, but murmur of life, stories by firelight, laughter between tears. Erasmus, with wit and gentleness, wrote in praise of folly, a work both playful and thoughtful, poking softly at human vanity, inviting reflection. In England, Thomas More dreamed of utopia, a land imagined where justice and harmony shaped life. His words were quiet vision, not decree, but suggestion, soft thought of what might be. Later, Shakespeare's plays would carry Renaissance words to stage, yet even his thunder was built upon whispers, soliloquies spoken to oneself, lines murmured between lovers, wisdom offered softly. The patient art of copying and printing literature lived not only in writing, but in copying and reading. In workshops, scribes bent over desks, their quills scratching. Later, presses printed pages, their ink multiplying words. A poem written in Florence might be read in Antwerp. A letter from Rotterdam copied in Paris. Words traveled slowly yet steadily, carried by students, merchants, pilgrims. Picture a small print shop in Venice. Wooden presses creak, sheets of paper rustle. Printers ink type, lay pages, press carefully. The air smells of ink and wax. Outside, gondolas drift upon canals, but inside, words are born again and again. A book that once required months to copy now fills shelves in days. Voices spread, softly but widely. Reading as quiet ritual to read was to pause. Families gathered by hearth, a father reading aloud. Children listening, their eyes wide. Scholars read in solitude, lips moving silently, pen marking notes. Friends exchanged letters, their words carrying across miles, voices heard even in absence. Reading was not rush, it was rhythm. A slow unfolding of thought. Imagine a noble woman in her chamber. She sits by window, sunlight upon her book. She reads a sonnet, her lips forming words softly. She pauses, smiles faintly, turns page. Outside, garden rustles in breeze, but inside, the world of words unfolds. Or imagine a student in Paris, candle burning, margins filled with notes, his quill stretching steadily. Hours pass unnoticed, the page his companion, silence his friend. Literature as mirror of humanity. Renaissance literature, like its art, reflected humanity. It spoke of virtue, of folly, of love, of death. It did not only command but invited reflection. A sonnet might linger upon beauty, a tale upon laughter, a play upon sorrow. Words became mirrors, soft and steady, where readers saw themselves anew. It was also dialogue between past and present, between faith and reason, between one human voice and another. Letters carried friendships, poems carried emotions, essays carried thoughts, each word a thread weaving people together across time and distance. Legacy of quiet words. Renaissance gave us statues and domes, music and voyages. But in its literature, it gave us voices, soft, patient, enduring. To read Petrarch today is to hear his sighs. To read Erasmus is to smile at his wit. To read more is to dream of better worlds. These are not shouts, but whispers, yet whispers, that still reach us. And so, as we picture Renaissance literature tonight, we do not hear noise of printing presses or clamor of markets. We hear quills scratching pages, turning voices reading softly. We see students by candlelight, noble women by windows, families by hearths. We feel patience of words, dignity of thought, silence of stories. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper, and its whisper was carried most gently in words. The Renaissance was a rebirth not only of art and science, but of thought. In its quietest corners, men and women sat together, speaking softly, reading slowly, reflecting patiently. This was the philosophy of the Renaissance, not thunderous proclamations, but gentle dialogues, not shouts of certainty, but murmurs of wonder. Its spirit was one of balance between faith and reason, between the past and the present, between the individual and the world. A return to ancient voice. At the heart of Renaissance philosophy was a return to the ancients. Scrolls and manuscripts of Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, and Seneca were rediscovered, copied, printed. Their words, once silent in dusty libraries, now lived again. Scholars gathered to read them aloud, to debate their meaning, to compare them with Christian thought. The old voices did not replace the new, nor did they fight them. Instead, they blended, creating harmony of reason and faith. Imagine a study in Florence. A group of men sit around a wooden table, their robes plain, their voices calm. One reads from Plato's dialogues, his Latin soft, his tone steady. The others listen, nodding, then respond in turn. Their words rise and fall like music, not in argument, but in search. Outside, bells of Santa Maria del Fiore echo faintly. Inside, the air hums with quiet reflection, human dignity and balance of humanists. Those scholars of the Renaissance spoke often of dignitas hominis, the dignity of man. They believed that human beings, though frail, carried worth, reason, freedom. This was not arrogance, but hope. It was not a denial of heaven, but recognition of earth. They sought harmony, to live well, to think well, to act justly. Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, in his oration on the dignity of man, wrote that humanity was unique, able to rise or fall, to choose its place in the chain of being. His words were not thunder, but vision, a gentle encouragement that humans were not bound, but free. His oration, though seldom spoken aloud in full, whispered across Europe, shaping thought softly, steadily. The Quia Academia's philosophy was often shared in academies' small gatherings, in formal schools' private rooms. The Platonic Academy in Florence, led by Marsilio Ficino, was one such circle. There, scholars read Plato and Plotinus, blending them with Christian ideas. They did not shout or command, but conversed, their words weaving like threads in tapestry. Picture such an evening: lamps glow upon manuscripts, shadows flicker on walls. Ficino reads aloud from Plato, his voice calm, his eyes bright. His companions listen, some taking notes, some gazing into distance. They speak in turn, their tones low, their questions gentle. Outside, night deepens. Inside, thought glows. Philosophy in daily life. A philosophy was not confined to scholars. Its echoes touched sermons, laws, letters, even art. A preacher in cathedral spoke of virtue, his words shaped by Aristotle. A lawyer in Bologna cited Cicero. A painter in Florence captured balance and harmony, guided by ideas of proportion and order. Thought seeped into life quietly, like water into soil. Letters were also a vessel. Friends wrote to one another, sharing reflections, offering counsel. A letter might contain philosophy not as system, but as advice: how to live, how to endure, how to hope. In this way, philosophy was not thunder of systems, but murmur of wisdom in daily life. The gentle rhythm of reflection. To philosophize in the Renaissance was to pause, to read slowly, to copy lines, to debate calmly, to reflect. Unlike the clashes of later centuries, Renaissance philosophy was often harmony. It did not seek to overthrow but to balance, to blend, to join. Its rhythm was patient, its tone quiet, its presence steady. Imagine a scholar at his desk in Paris. Candle burns low, inkpot open, quill scratching. He copies Aristotle, then adds his own notes, questions, thoughts. He pauses often, staring at flame, letting words sink in. Outside, the city hums. Inside, silence reigns. His reflection is slow, gentle, enduring. Legacy of soft philosophy. Renaissance gave us domes, voyages, discoveries. But its philosophy gave us balance, the sense that humans could think, could question, could hope. It whispered dignity, harmony, proportion. It blended faith and reason, past and present, silence and thought. And so, as we picture Renaissance philosophy tonight, we do not hear shouts of debate or clash of systems. We hear voices reading aloud, calm and steady. We see scholars in lamplight, students listening patiently, friends writing letters. We feel the dignity of reflection, the quiet courage of thought, the soft echo of philosophy shaping the age. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper, and in philosophy, that whisper still lingers, calm, patient, eternal. The Renaissance is remembered for domes and discoveries, for frescoes and philosophies. Yet beneath all its wonders lay the steady breath of faith. Religion shaped every hour, every day, every year. Bells marked the morning, noon, and night. Candles glowed before saints. Pilgrims walked dusty roads to shrines. Families prayed at hearths. And though great debates and reforms would come, faith in the Renaissance was often not thunder, but whisper, quiet prayers rising, steady rituals guiding, gentle reforms unfolding. Daily faith. Religion lived first in daily rhythm. Each morning began with bells calling to Mass, streets filled with footsteps moving toward chapels. Voices murmured responses, chants echoed softly, incense drifted upward. At noon bells rang again, workers pausing in markets, in fields, in workshops. Some crossed themselves quickly. Some prayed longer, but all felt the rhythm. At night before sleep, candles burned, psalms whispered, blessings spoken. Faith was woven into every day, not loudly but steadily. Imagine a small home in Venice. A family gathers at table. Bread and wine before them. The father leads prayer, his voice low. The children repeating softly. The mother lights a small candle before painted Madonna on shelf. Outside, canals ripple. Inside, silence hums with devotion. It is not grand, not thunderous, it is gentle, ordinary, eternal. Pilgrimage and Shrineth's Renaissance world was full of shrines and holy places. Pilgrims walked to Santiago de Compostela, to Rome, to Canterbury, to local chapels. They carried staffs, wore simple cloaks, sang hymns softly as they walked. Along the way, towns welcomed them with bread, with rest, with blessings. Pilgrimage was not only journey of feet, but of heart, each step a prayer, each mile a whisper of faith. Picture a group of pilgrims at dawn. They rise from roadside shelter, pack belongings, begin again. Their breath visible and cold, their songs low, fields stretch, birds stir, sky glows faintly. Step by step, they walk, their silence itself a devotion. The church and patronage, great churches of Renaissance: Florence Cathedral, St. Peter's. In Rome, chapels across Italy and beyond were not only art but worship. Their frescoes and domes, their sculptures and altarpieces were made for devotion. When a worshipper knelt, the painted saints, the carved Madonnas, the glowing windows became companions in prayer. Beauty and faith were not separate, they were one. Popes and cardinals supported this grandeur, commissioning works not only as symbols of power, but as offerings. Julius II's Sistine Chapel ceiling, Raphael's stands, Michelangelo's Pete, each was art, but also faith. Worshippers entered, lifted eyes, whispered prayers. The stones and colors did not shout, they sheltered, they embraced, they held silence. Reform and reflection, yet even in this devotion, questions stirred. Some saw wealth of church, its grandeur, its corruption. Whispers of reform began, soft at first, like ripples on water. Erasmus wrote with gentle wit, urging simplicity, humility, true devotion. Thomas More dreamed of justice and harmony. These were not loud revolts, but quiet reflections, seeds of change. Later, louder voices would come: Martin Luther nailing theses, Calvin shaping doctrine, Reformation spreading. But in Renaissance itself, much began as murmur, as call for gentleness, for purity, for reform, not in thunder but in echo. Monks and nuns in cloisters, monks and nuns kept steady rhythm. Their lives were prayer, study, labor. In scriptoriums, they copied books. In gardens, they grew herbs. In chapels, they chanted psalms. Their voices rose in harmony, then fell into silence, each day shaped by bells, each hour marked by devotion. They lived not for noise, but for quiet presence. Imagine a convent at night. Candles glow along stone walls. Sisters kneel in prayer, their voices soft, their faces calm. Beyond, the world sleeps, but within, silence breathes. Or a monastery at dawn. Monks file into chapel, their chants slow, deep, steady, echoing in arches. The air cold, the rhythm timeless. The gentle face of faith. Faith in the Renaissance was not only doctrine or debate. It was bread shared with poor, alms given to pilgrim, kindness shown in markets. It was mothers teaching children prayers, fathers blessing them at night. It was festivals filling streets with joy, Easter processions, Christmas masses, saints' feasts. These were moments not of noise, but of glow, steady light warming community. Legacy of quiet faith. Renaissance gave us art, science, voyages, philosophy. But it also gave us faith, gentle, steady, enduring. Beneath domes and frescoes, beneath debates and reforms, lay simple prayers whispered in countless homes, countless chapels. That was the true breath of the age, not thunder, but whisper, not blaze, but glow. And so, as we picture Renaissance religion tonight, we do not hear clashes of reform or thunder of councils. We hear bells calling, chants rising, prayers whispered. Candles burning, we see pilgrims walking, families praying, monks chanting, nuns studying. We feel calm of devotion, silence of faith, patience of reform. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper, and its whisper was faith carried gently across centuries. The Renaissance is often remembered through its great works of stone and paint, through voyages and philosophies. Yet for ordinary people, the heartbeat of life was also found in festivals, moments when the rhythm of work paused, when streets filled with color, when music and laughter rose softly into air. Festivals were not thunder, but glow, gentle joys that bound communities, that gave rest to weary hands, that filled piazzas with light. The rhythm of the earth year was marked by sacred days. Easter with its processions, Christmas with its Mass, saints' days with parades and feasts. These were not only religious moments, but communal ones. Streets decorated, churches filled, families gathered. Alongside them came civic festivals, celebrations of victories, weddings, markets, guild events. Life was hard, work endless, but festivals gave pause, gave breath, gave joy. Imagine Florence on Easter morning, bells ring from every tower. There, sound soft yet full, streets fill with families, children in bright garments, parents carrying candles, priests lead processions, their robe flowing, incense drifting, choirs sing, voices rising. In piazza, tables are set, bread and wine shared. It is not noise of battle, it is harmony of joy. Music and dance festivals were filled with music. In churches, choirs sang hymns. In streets, musicians played lutes, flutes, drums. Dancers stepped in circles, their movements slow, graceful. Songs were learned by children, repeated by elders, passed on through generations. Music echoed through piazzas, not as roar, but as steady hum, a gentle weaving of sound. Picture Venice at Carnival. Masts glow in lantern light, gondolas drift, music drifts from palaces. Laughter echoes softly, costumes shimmer, dances fill halls. Yet even in grandeur, there is calm, the water steady, the night serene, the joy measured, patient. Colors and costumes festivals brought color, garments bright, banners waving, flowers woven into crowns. In Florence, guilds paraded with banners of lions, lilies, suns. In Siena, the palio horse race filled square with flags, with drums, with cheers. Yet for all the spectacle, the heart of festivals lay in community, in neighbors gathered, in hands joined, in faces lit with quiet smiles. Children played, chasing ribbons. Merchants gave gifts. Bakers shared sweet breads. Butchers roasted meats. For all, even the poorest, shared in joy, for festivals opened hands, loosened hearts. Hunger eased, sorrow lifted, at least for a day. Faith and celebration, sacred and civic, were not separate. A saint's feast was both mass and meal, prayer and dance. A procession of relics was both devotion and celebration. Faith gave festivals meaning, community gave them warmth. Together, they wove rhythm of life. Picture a procession in Rome, relics carried high, priests chanting softly, crowds following with candles. Children run beside, their laughter mixing with hymns. Bells ring, incense drifts, banners wave. At day's end, families feast, voices hum, joy lingers. Festivals of like many festivals were marked by fire torches, candles, lanterns. At night, piazzas glowed, shadows danced upon walls. Fires burned in celebration, warmth spread through crowds, light against darkness, joy against weariness. To see piazza filled with lanterns was to feel unity, to feel time pause, to feel eternity in moment. Imagine Florence at night, festival lanterns glowing, families walk slowly, children pointing, musicians playing softly, stars shine above, lights shine below, all merging into calm, gentle joy. Festivals were not escape from life, but part of it. They gave rhythm, balance, harmony. Work was hard, life uncertain, but joy returned softly, steadily. Laughter rose, music drifted, colors glowed. Festivals reminded all that life was not only toil, but also light, legacy of quiet celebration. They Renaissance gave us domes, frescoes, voyages, books. But it also gave us festivals, moments when humanity paused, when communities glowed, when joy breathed. These moments, though often forgotten in history, were heartbeat of age. They were not thunder, they were whisper of joy, soft, steady, eternal. And so, as we picture Renaissance festivals tonight, we do not hear clash of armies or roar of crowds. We hear bells ringing, flutes sighing, drums steady, laughter rising. We see children chasing, neighbors greeting, candles glowing. We feel warmth of fire, calm of community, glow of joy. The Renaissance lived not only in masterpieces, but in gentle festivals, in quiet celebrations of life itself. The Renaissance is often remembered through domes and frescoes, through voyages and books, yet in the streets, in the courts, in the daily rhythm of life, its spirit was also worn upon the body. Clothing in the Renaissance was not only protection from cold or heat, it was art, identity, devotion, community. And though silks might shimmer, jewels might glitter, the essence of clothing was quiet, the soft rustle of linen, the steady rhythm of weaving, the patience of hands spinning threads. Fabrics of daily life. The foundation of all clothing was fabric: linen, wool, silk. Linen shirts and shifts, soft and plain, were worn close to skin. Wool garments, dyed in colors from herbs and roots, clothed most people: browns, grays, muted greens. For warmth, cloaks of heavier wool wrapped shoulders. Silk, rare and costly, was for the wealthy, glowing with color, smooth to touch. Imagine a weaver's workshop. The loom stands tall, its wood creaking softly as shuttle moved back and forth. Threads cross in steady rhythm, cloth slowly forming. The weaver's hands move patiently, his foot pressing treadles, his eyes watching tension. Outside, market hums faintly. Inside, silence is filled with fabric's birth. Threads of wealth and simplicity for peasants and artisans. Clothing was simple: woolen tunics, linen shifts, plain cloaks, belts of leather, shoes of wood or hide, colors muted, cuts practical. Yet even here care was taken. Mothers spun wool, daughters dyed cloth, families sewed garments. Each stitch held patience, each garment care. For nobles and merchants, clothing became display of wealth and taste. Doublets of silk, gowns of velvet, sleeves wide and flowing, embroidery glittering with gold thread. Women's dresses, layered linen beneath, brocade above, fur trimming edges, jewels sewn into fabric, pearls at necklines, chains across chests. Yet even in splendor, silence remained: the rustle of silk in hallways, the soft gleam of velvet. By candlelight, the colors of the Renaissance cities brought life: indigo, deep blue, madder red, saffron yellow, walnut brown. In Florence, dyers' guilds kept vats steaming, their colors rich, their recipes guarded. Workers stirred cloth in cauldrons, their hands stained, their eyes patient. Fabrics hung to dry, colors glowing in sun. Picture a Florentine street where dyed cloth flutters from lines. Reds deep as wine, blues glowing like twilight, greens soft as leaves. Children run beneath, women watch proudly, men carry bolts to market. The air smells of dye, sharp yet earthy. Life woven into fabric. Clothing as identity. Clothing marked identity. Guilds wore colors, families bore emblems, cities had fashions. A scholar's robe, black and plain, told of learning. A merchant's gown, fur-lined, told of wealth. A nun's habit, simple and steady, told of devotion. Clothes spoke softly, telling stories without words. At weddings, garments glowed with festivity: brides in brocade, grooms in velvet, guests in colors bright. At funerals, black cloaks filled streets, the silence of cloth matching silence of grief. At festivals, masks and costumes transformed faces, silk and leather hiding identities, voices mingling beneath disguise. The rhythm of dressing to dress in Renaissance was not quick: layers folded, laced, tied, shirts beneath, doublets above, cloaks over all. Women's gowns laced tightly, skirts heavy, veils pinned. Servants assisted nobles, lacing gowns, fastening jewels. Even peasants layered carefully, securing belts, wrapping cloaks. Dressing was ritual, patience steady, marking day's rhythm. Imagine a noblewoman in chamber. Servants help her into gown of velvet. Adjusting sleeves, fastening laces, she stands, still silent, as they smooth fabric. At last a mirror reflects her form, her face calm. She moves softly, her dress rustling like quiet song. The patience of tailors and seamstress bend every garment stood tailors and seamstresses. Their needles move silently, stitching seams, hemming edges, embroidering patterns. Ours upon ours for single gown, each thread patient, each detail steady. In workshops, apprentices cut fabric, pressed seams, carried garments. Masters guided, their eyes sharp, their voices low. Picture a seamstress at night, candle beside her, her needle glinting faintly. She stitches carefully, her breath steady, her hand sure. The garment grows slowly, stitch by stitch, silence deep. Round her legacy of silent threads. Renaissance gave us art, philosophy, voyages. But it also gave us clothing, soft fabrics, silent threads, garments that spoke identity, devotion, beauty. To walk through Florence or Venice was to see history, worn simple cloaks beside velvet gowns, wool beside silk, plain beside splendid. Each garment whispered of life, of care, of patience. And so, as we picture Renaissance clothing tonight, we do not hear clamor of looms or bustle of markets. We hear shuttles tapping softly, needles stitching patiently, silk rustling gently. We see wool cloaks, silk gowns, velvet robes. We feel warmth of fabric, calm of thread, silence of dress. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper, and its whisper was woven into every garment. The Renaissance is remembered for domes and voyages, for painting and philosophy. Yet each day in every home, in every city and village, life gathered around tables. Food was not thunder's feasts alone, it was daily bread, simple stews, fruit, in baskets, wine poured gently. It was markets humming softly at dawn, kitchens glowing with hearth fire, families sharing quiet meals. Renaissance food was patience and presence, gentle flavors, silent nourishment, daily bread and simple meals sat. The heart of Renaissance diet was bread. In Florence, bakers rose before dawn, kneading dough, sliding loaves into brick ovens. The smell drifted into streets, warm and earthy. Families bought loaves daily, some white and soft, for wealthy, some dark and coarse, for poor. Bread was broken at every meal, dipped into stews, paired with cheese, shared in silence. Soups and stews filled bowls, beans simmered with herbs, lentils softened in clay pots, vegetables boiled with oil. Meat was rare for common folk, but when peas and pork salted, chicken stewed, fish grilled, it was savored slowly. Cheese and eggs gave sustenance, olives and oil richness, fruit sweetness. Meals were not elaborate, they were rhythm of life, quiet and steady. Imagine a peasant home, clay pot bubbles on hearth, beans and onions simmering, bread lies sliced upon table, cheese wrapped in cloth nearby. Children wait, their eyes bright. Father ladles stew, mother pours water, voices murmur thanks. Outside, wind moves through fields. Inside, warmth glows, silence breathes. Markets and ingredients marks gave life variety. Stalls brimmed with apples, pears, grapes, figs, nuts piled in baskets, herbs tied in bundles, spices rare but treasured, pepper, saffron, cinnamon. For those who could afford, fishermen laid out catch eels, trout, sardines. Butchers displayed cuts, bakers stacked loaves. Voices called softly, coins clinked, hands exchanged goods. Picture Venice market by canal. Gondolas dock, baskets unloaded. Women examine figs. Men lift fish, children tug at sleeves for sweets. A spice seller opens jar, scent of cinnamon drifting. Bells ring nearby, gulls call overhead. Market hums not roar, but steady song of life. Feasts and nobility for nobles and merchants. Meals could be grander. Tables covered with cloth, silver dishes gleaming. Courses followed one another, roasted meats, Pastries filled with fruit, pies of fish, custards, sugared almonds. Wine flowed, music played, servants moved quietly, yet even here beneath glitter was rhythm of patience, cooks' laboring hours, servants arranging dishes, diners lingering slowly. At weddings, banquets stretched for hours, tables heavy with meat, bread, fruit, sweets. At civic feasts, guilds shared dishes, communities gathered, voices louder but joy still steady. Festivals filled streets with roasted chestnuts, honey cakes, mulled wine. Yet at heart, food was always communion, not thunder of indulgence, but whisper of sharing. Kitchens and labor behind every meal was kitchen labor. Fires tended, pots stirred, knives sharpened, bread kneaded. Servants in noble houses worked silently, their tasks steady. In peasant homes, mothers stirred pots, fathers fetched water, children gathered herbs. The kitchen was hearth fires steady, smoke curling, smell of food mingling with warmth. Imagine a kitchen in Florence palace. Servants move softly, chopping herbs, roasting meat, ranging fruit. A cook stirs pot, tasting, nodding, adding pinch of spice. Flames glow, shadows flicker, silence filled with rhythm of labor. Outside, feast prepares. Inside, patience creates food, and faith. Meals began with prayer, bread blessed, wine raised, thanks murmured. Fasts marked calendar, meat set aside, fish eaten, meals simpler. Festivals lifted diet, sweet breads at Easter, rich meats at Christmas, harvest feasts in autumn. Food and faith intertwined, not as noise, but as rhythm guiding year. Gentle flavors. Renaissance cooking was not heavy with spice, but gentle with herbs. Sage, rosemary, thyme, parsley. Olive oil gave richness, vinegar sharpness, honey sweetness. Fruit ended meals, nuts added crunch, wine warmed. Flavors were not thunderous, they were balanced, soft, enduring. Picture family in Mantua, evening meal set, bread and cheese, olives, and figs, jug of wine. Father slices bread, mother offers fruit, children laugh softly. Window open, air cool, stars glimmer. Table is simple, but life glows. Legacy of quiet tables. Renaissance gave us domes, voyages, paintings, but it also gave us meals, quiet, daily, steady. Bread broken, wine poured, stews simmered. Families gathered, neighbors feasted, guilds celebrated. Tables held not thunder, but whisper, the whisper of community, of nourishment, of life itself. And so, as we picture Renaissance food tonight, we do not hear clamor of kitchens or roar of feasts. We hear bread crust cracking, stew bubbling, knives slicing gently. We see baskets of fruit, loaves of bread, cups of wine. We feel warmth of hearth, calm of table, silence of flavors. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper, and its whisper was tasted in every meal. The Renaissance is remembered for its domes and frescoes, its voyages and books. Yet in every street, in every home, and every market square, life was also carried forward by children. Their laughter softened hard labor, their steps filled cobblestones with light rhythm, their games gave warmth to piazzas and courtyards. The Renaissance was not only built by scholars and artists, but also by children who lived quietly, learned patiently, and grew into the men and women who continued the age. The quiet rhythm of childhood in Renaissance families. Children were many. They rose at dawn with parents, shared bread, learned tasks. Some helped in workshops, carrying tools or sweeping floors. Others tended animals, fetched water, gathered wood. Daughters helped mothers spin wool, prepare meals, mind younger siblings. Sons learned fathers' trades, their small hands imitating larger ones. Childhood was not loud with freedom. It was quiet with learning. Yet even in work, there was play. A boy carrying firewood paused to roll hoop with stick. A girl fetching water stopped to skip with friends. Children's lives balanced between duty and laughter, responsibility and wonder. Games and play in the Renaissance was simple. Wooden dolls carved by fathers, cloth dolls sewn by mothers, bowls of leather, hoops of wood, dice of bone. Children chased one another in narrow streets, played tag in piazzas, sang rhymes, clapped hands in rhythm. In villages, Children gathered in fields, flying kites of cloth, building castles of mud. In cities, they ran between market stalls, laughing softly, their games weaving through adults' work. Their voices echoed, not harsh but gentle, filling air like birdsong. Picture Florence courtyard at dusk. Children gather with hoops, bowls, dolls. Their laughter rises, then fades, their games soft, their joy steady above. Lanterns glow, parents watch from windows. Life continues, calm and eternal. Learning and patience for some, childhood meant school. Boys carried tablets to teachers, sat upon stools, repeated Latin words. Their voices low, their teachers' guidance steady. Girls, less often, learned at home reading prayers. Learning music, practicing embroidery. Some noble daughters studied more, guided by tutors, their hands turning pages, their eyes bright. Imagine a small classroom in Siena. Boys sit with wax tablets, quills ready. Teacher reads Cicero aloud, voice calm, measured. The children repeat, some stumbling, some steady. Candles flicker, pens scratch, silence hums. Outside, market stirs, inside, knowledge grows. Childhood was not rush, it was patient unfolding. Children in faith guided childhood too. Baptism welcomed infants. Prayers shaped mornings and nights. Festivals brought joy, Easter with candles, Christmas with gifts of fruit and nuts, saints' days with songs. Children walked in processions carrying candles, singing hymns softly. Faith was not loud, it was woven gently into days, steady and calm. Clothing and care. Children wore smaller versions of adult clothes, woolen tunics, linen shirts, small cloaks, shoes simple, often outgrown quickly. Mothers sewed and mended. Fathers carved toys, siblings handed down garments. Care was constant, nurses rocking infants, mothers soothing cries, fathers lifting tired children after long days. Imagine a child in Venice market, cooked to large, shoes worn, yet smile wide. He clutches small wooden toy carved by father. On him gondolas drift, merchants call softly, bells ring. His presence brings warmth. Innocence amid labor. The silence of lost childhood was also fragile. Many did not survive illnesses, fevers, plagues. Families mourned often, their grief quiet, their prayers steady. Yet love remained deep and constant. Each child cherished, each moment treasured, each step remembered. Legacy of gentle steps. Children gave the Renaissance its future, its continuity. Their laughter softened streets. Their games brightened piazzas. Their learning carried wisdom onward. They were not loud presence, but quiet thread weaving generations. And so, as we picture Renaissance children tonight, we do not hear noise of crowds or roar of markets. We hear laughter drifting like birdsong, rhymes sung softly, footsteps echoing in courtyards. We see children with dolls, with hoops, with books. We feel patience of learning, warmth of family, fragility of life. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper, and its whisper was carried gently in children's steps. The Renaissance is often told through the names of artists, architects, explorers, and philosophers, most of them men. Yet behind every fresco, every voyage, every classroom, and every table, there were women. They carried families, guided households, supported workshops, influenced courts. Their strength was not always in loud command, but in gentle presence, quiet endurance, patient wisdom. If the Renaissance was a great painting, women were its background, colors subtle, constant, giving harmony to all. Daily rhythms of women. For most women, life followed rhythm of home. They rose with dawn, tending fires, kneading dough, spinning wool, caring for children. Their hands worked steadily, stitching, sweeping, preparing meals. In fields, they planted, harvested, carried water. In markets, they sold produce, bargained softly, balanced baskets upon heads. Their presence was constant, though rarely written in books. Imagine a Florentine kitchen at morning. A woman bends over wooden table, her hands dusted with flour, shaping loaves. A child clings to her skirt, another plays with spindle. Outside, bells ring faintly, neighbors call softly. She hums a hymn, her voice low, her labor steady. This was the quiet breath of life. Women of craft and trade. Some women worked in crafts and trades, in weaving workshops. Wives and daughters spun, dyed, wove. In taverns, women served meals, poured wine, tended guests. In markets, they sold bread, herbs, cloth. Widows often continued husbands' trades, running shops, hiring apprentices, keeping accounts. Their labor was uncelebrated, but essential. Threads woven into fabric of city. Picture a Venetian dyer's shop. A woman stirs cloth in steaming vat, her arms strong, her face calm. Children bring buckets, apprentices carry bowls. She checks color, adjusts fire, balances accounts at night. Her work quiet, her influence lasting. Women of nobility and courts. For noble women, life was different yet equally guided by patience. In courts, women became patrons of art, guardians of culture, voices of diplomacy. Isabella d'Este of Mantua gathered painters, musicians, scholars in her palace, her letters shaping taste across Italy. Vittoria Colonna, poet and noblewoman, corresponded with Michelangelo, her words guiding his thought. Queens, duchesses, ladies in waiting each carried influence not with swords, but with counsel. Letters, hospitality. Imagine Isabella's chamber. She sits at desk, quill in hand, parchment before her. A painter shows sketches, a musician tunes lute, a scholar recites verse. She listens calmly, her presence steady, her decisions shaping culture. Outside, Mantua's streets murmur. Inside, her voice sets tone. Women and education. Education for women was rare, yet some received it. Daughters of nobles learned Latin, poetry, music, philosophy. Some wrote letters, poems, treatises. Christine de Pizan, earlier in France, wrote The Book of the City of Ladies, defending women's worth. Laura Chiretta wrote essays, arguing for women's education. Their voices were soft but firm, carried in manuscripts, shared among scholars. Imagine a young noblewoman in Ferrara. She sits by window, sunlight upon her book. Her tutor reads Cicero, she listens. Repeats softly, she writes notes, her quill steady. Her brothers study nearby, but her presence carries wisdom, dignity. Women in faith. Many women entered convents, where they found both devotion and learning. Nuns copied manuscripts, taught girls, healed sick, composed music. Some became abbesses, guiding communities with calm authority. In convent walls, voices of women sang softly, their chants rising with patience. Picture a convent chapel at night. Candles glow, nuns kneel, their voices blending in hymn. Outside, silence of countryside. Inside, harmony of devotion. Their influence reached beyond walls, their presence steady in prayer, in service, in teaching. Gentle strength and silent endurance. Women's strength was often silent. They bore hardships of childbirth, illness, loss. They endured absence of husbands in war voyages, trade. They kept families steady, guided children, supported communities. Their voices may not fill chronicles, but their silence carried generations. Widow Encina tends her shop alone. She measures grain, takes coins, gives change, her face lined, her posture firm. On her, life continues, and through her patience, her family survives. Her strength not loud, but eternal, legacy of quiet. Influence. Renaissance gave us Michelangelo, Leonardo, Galileo, but it also gave us Isabella d'Este, Vittoria Colonna, countless mothers, wives, daughters, sisters. Women's influence was not only in great names, but in daily patience, in household rhythm, in cultural guidance. Without them, no dome would rise, no book be copied, no voyage supplied. And so, as we picture Renaissance women tonight, we do not hear loud speeches or public applause. We hear looms creaking, lullabies sung softly, quills scratching letters, footsteps echoing in convent halls. We see mothers at hearth, noble women at desks, nuns in chapels. We feel strength that is quiet, presence that is steady, influence that is soft yet enduring. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper. And in women, that whisper was strongest. The Renaissance is often described through names of great men, painters, sculptors, explorers, philosophers. Yet behind these few remembered figures stood millions of others: fathers, brothers, sons, apprentices, merchants, farmers. Their lives did not echo in books, yet their quiet labors gave foundation to all. The Renaissance was not only born in workshops of genius, but also in fields tilled by peasants, in shops tended by merchants, in guild halls where men spoke softly of trade and duty. Their presence was steady, their responsibilities gentle yet constant. The rhythm of daily work. Most men in the Renaissance lived by labor. Farmers rose at dawn tending wheat vines, olives. Their plows creaked, their hands worked soil, their days shaped by sun. Shepherds walked hills, their staffs steady, their flocks moving slowly. In cities, artisans bent over benches, chiseling, weaving, forging. Merchants counted coins, bargained in piazzas, kept ledgers. Each life moved with rhythm of work, patient and enduring. Imagine a Tuscan vineyard. Men prune vines at dawn, their voices low, their breath misting in morning air. They pause to drink water, to straighten backs, then continue. In evening, they sit together, bread and wine before them, silence broken by calm laughter. Their lives are not thunderous, but steady like earth they tend. Guilds and brotherhoods in cities, men gathered in guilds. Bakers, butchers, weavers, dyers, goldsmiths. Each trade had its hall, its rules, its rituals. Guilds trained apprentices, protected members, supported widows and orphans. Meetings were quiet affairs, men seated on benches, candles glowing, voices measured. They discussed prices, weights, standards, but also festivals, processions, charity. Through guilds, men found community, balance, dignity. Picture a Florentine guild hall. Wooden beams overhead, long table below. Men sit in cloaks, hands folded, candles flicker. A master speaks softly, others nod. Papers signed, coins exchanged. Apprentices admitted outside. Bells echo inside. Silence of duty holds. Fathers and families. Men's greatest responsibility was often family. Fathers guided households, worked to provide, protected with presence. In evenings, they sat by hearth, telling stories to children, advising sons, blessing daughters. Their love was seldom written in books, yet it was constant. Bread earned, shelter built, safety given. Imagine a peasant home in Mantua. Father returns from field, shoulders weary. Children rush, clinging to him, their laughter soft. He smiles faintly, places hand upon their heads, sits by fire. His wife brings bread. They eat in silence, calm and steady. His presence is gift, his patience strength. Apprentices and masters' boys often apprenticed to masters' tailors, painters, carpenters, merchants. They swept floors, carried tools, fetched water. Slowly, they learned craft, their hands growing steady. Masters guided with correction and example, their voices firm but calm. A bond formed like father and son, like teacher and pupil. In a painter's workshop, a boy grinds pigments, mortar turning softly. He watches master lay brush upon canvas, silent, absorbing. Years will pass before his own brush moves with freedom, but each day teaches patience. His life is whisper of learning, not thunder of achievement. Men of nobility and responsibility. For noblemen, life carried duties of governance and war. They attended councils, judged disputes, led soldiers when called. Yet even here much was quiet. Hours in chambers signing documents, evenings in gardens speaking with advisors, mornings hearing petitions. Battles were few, duties daily. Their presence was steady weight, not loud spectacle. Picture a duke in Ferrara. He sits at desk, quill in hand, parchment before him. Advisors stand nearby, their voices low. He signs slowly, seals document, nods. Outside, fountains murmur in courtyard. Inside, duty unfolds in silence. Men in faith and reflection. Many men entered monasteries, choosing prayer and study. Monks rose at dawn, chanted psalms, copied books. tended gardens. Their lives were quiet responsibility to God, to community, to learning. Priests guided parishes. Confessors listened patiently. Friars preached gently in streets. Their words were not shouts, but murmurs of faith. The fragility of life, like women and children, men faced hardships, war, famine, plague. Some left for voyages, never to return. Others endured poverty, illness, uncertainty. Yet through it all, they carried responsibilities, protecting, providing, enduring. Their strength was not always in triumph, but in patience. Imagine a sailor in Lisbon, preparing for voyage. He ties ropes, checks sails, his hands steady, his face calm. He kisses family goodbye, his voice low, his steps slow. The sea waits uncertain, but his duty is clear. His courage is quiet, his resolve firm. Legacy of gentle responsibility. Ish Renaissance is remembered through names of great men, but it was built by countless others. Their work tilled soil, forged tools, baked bread, raised children, guided guilds. Their presence was quiet but necessary, their responsibilities steady but gentle. Without them, no dome would rise, no fresco painted, no voyage begun. And so, as we picture Renaissance men tonight, we do not hear shouts of command or clash of armies. We hear plows creaking, hammers tapping, coins counted softly, children laughing. At fathers' knees, we see men in fields and shops, in guild halls, in homes. We feel patience of duty, calm of presence, silence of strength. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper. And its whisper was carried in men's quiet responsibilities. The Renaissance has ended, yet it has never truly left. Its domes still rise, its frescoes still glow, its books still whisper, its music still drifts. The people of the Renaissance, painters, sculptors, scholars, merchants, mothers, fathers, children, are long gone, their voices faded, their footsteps silent, yet what they built in patience remains. The Renaissance was not thunder, it was whisper. And whispers, though soft, can carry far, echoing gently through time. Stones that still stand walk today through Florence, Venice, Rome, and you still feel Renaissance stones. The dome of Santa Maria del Fiore still curves against sky. Brunelleschi's patience solid after centuries. The palaces along Venetian canals still gleam, their reflections trembling in water. St. Peter's Basilica still rises, Michelangelo's dome steady above pilgrims. These stones are silent, yet alive. They remind us not of noise, but of endurance, how steady labor, patient design, gentle balance can last beyond lifetimes. Colors that still glow step into chapels and museums, and Renaissance colors still glow. Frescoes of Giotto, Masaccio, Michelangelo still breathe on walls. Canvases of Leonardo, Raphael, Titian still shimmer softly. The Mona Lisa's smile, faint and calm, still meets countless eyes. These are not shouts across centuries, but whispers, brushstrokes, layered patiently, pigments ground carefully, light painted softly. Their glow remains steady, eternal. Words that still speak, books of the Renaissance still open, their pages still turning. Petrarch's sonnets still sigh, Erasmus's wit still smiles, More's utopia still dreams. Shakespeare's plays, born in Renaissance spirit, still murmur, soliloquize on countless stages. These words are not thunder, they are steady murmurs, carried across time. To read them now is to hear voices of centuries past, calm, patient, eternal. Music that still drifts, Renaissance music, once sung in chapels, still drifts in recordings and choirs. Palestrina's masses still lift voices into calm harmony. Lute songs still strum softly, viols still hum. To hear them today is to feel piazzas at dusk, chapels at dawn, families by fire. Their harmonies, though centuries old, remain gentle companions, guiding silence into peace. Lives that still matter beyond domes and books. The Renaissance left quieter legacies. The mothers who baked bread, the fathers who tilled soil, the children who laughed in courtyards, all carried the age. Their names forgotten, their steps vanished, yet their presence endures in us. For we too live by bread and books, by work and rest, by faith and laughter. The Renaissance whispers not only through masterpieces, but through daily life continued. Gentle influence on the world. Renaissance spread slowly outward, its ideas crossing mountains and seas. Its echoes shaped France, England, Spain, Germany. Its thought crossed oceans, carried by explorers. Its art shaped centuries after inspiring Baroque, Neoclassicism, Romanticism. Its philosophy guided revolutions of reason. Its science prepared for discoveries vast, but its influence was not a single roar. It was a steady flow, a gentle tide. The silence of memory. History often remembers battles, kings, conquests. Yet the Renaissance reminds us that history is also made in silence, in brushstrokes, in chisels, in quills, in looms, in prayers, in songs. It is not only thunder that endures, whispers to travel across centuries. The Renaissance is proof that patience, balance, and beauty, though quiet, can echo endlessly. Standing still in time. Picture a traveler today in Florence. Evening falls, piazza glows, dome rises, music drifts faintly from nearby, bells ring softly. The traveler pauses, breathes slowly, feels centuries layered in air. In that moment, past and present touch. The Renaissance is not gone, it lingers. Soft, eternal. Legacy as whispered. So, as we close our journey through the Renaissance, we do not hear thunder of glory or clash of greatness. We hear whispers, stones standing, colors glowing, words sighing, music drifting. We see people, scholars at desks, children at play, women spinning wool, men tending vines. We feel presence of patience, dignity of labor, calm of beauty. The Renaissance was not storm, but dawn, not roar, but glow, not thunder, but whisper. And its whisper still carries, soft and steady, through time, through us, through tomorrow. The Renaissance was never only about the brilliance of domes or the mastery of frescoes, the genius of philosophers or the voyages of explorers. It was also about the quiet strength of families, the patience of artisans, the soft laughter of children, and the gentle rhythm of daily life. It was a moment when humanity turned toward beauty, balance, and discovery, not with thunder, but with whispers. Across its art, we saw soft colors telling silent stories. In its sculptures, stone breathed with calm dignity. In music, voices intertwined in harmony, drifting like incense through chapels. In literature, words whispered wisdom across centuries. In philosophy, reflection was calm, steady, searching. And in daily life, whether at hearth or market, in guild halls or classrooms, the Renaissance unfolded as a rhythm of patience and quiet strength. Its legacy was not loud proclamation but enduring presence. The stones of its architecture still stand, the colors of its paintings still glow, the voices of its writers still speak. Its faith continues in the silent prayers that once filled chapels. Its joy lingers in the memory of festivals and feasts. Its wisdom in the dignity of both men and women who carried responsibilities in silence. The Renaissance teaches us that history is not always made in noise. Sometimes it is shaped by slow brushstrokes, by steady chisels, by quiet classrooms, by whispered prayers. Its soft echoes remain with us even now, reminding us that patience creates endurance. And whispers, though gentle, can travel further than thunder. And so, as we close this journey, let us remember the Renaissance not as a roar of triumph, but as a glow of dawn, a soft light that rose slowly, quietly, yet has never faded. Its echo still guides us, calm and eternal, like a whisper, carried by time itself.